Welcome to Chinese Novel Audiobook. Chapter 41 Inches Heart Network. Second son of the Kong family, stop messing around. This is not the place for you to throw a tantrum. Since this is your first time, let it go this time, but don't cause trouble for me again. The man who was standing on top of the Xiaoji's head just now suddenly flashed here and said to Kong Junxi. Kong Junxi was about to retort when he saw the moonlight shining on the man's head and the iconic glowing head, so he immediately shut his mouth. Seeing this, Yuanzi immediately guessed the man's identity and bowed respectfully. Hello, Lord City Lord. Well, Yuan's, hello to you too. The City Lord nodded slightly in response. Kong Junxi was indignant and secretly cursed Yuan's for being favored by the City Lord while he himself could not even get a little face. In his mind, although the City Lord had a noble status, it was nothing compared to the Kong family. However, the City Lord seemed to see through his thoughts and showed displeasure. Kong Junxi, you'd better put away your dissatisfaction. Don't think I don't know what you are thinking. If you dare to act rashly again, don't blame me for being rude. Lock them up for a few days. After all, they cannot challenge Xiaoji's authority. The three rules are also the foundation of the free city. The City Lord was slightly startled, and then his handsome brows relaxed. You are smart. You didn't forget to find a reason for me. The City Lord clapped his hands lightly, and an invisible force immediately restrained those troublemakers and made them unable to move. Even the little ghosts hiding nearby were not spared. As for Kong Junxi, who looked bright on the outside but was actually dirty on the inside, his mouth was sealed by this force and he could only twist in pain on the ground like a struggling maggot. Someone will come to deal with them later. After the City Lord said this, he gently lifted up Yuan's and the masked man with an invisible force, and instantly returned to the office above Xiaoji's head. Ouch, you threw me again. Yuan stood up awkwardly, brushing off the dust on his body while muttering, you all do this, can't you be more gentle? Ha ha ha. The City Lord laughed out loud. The hero of B03 can look like this. Who would believe it if I told anyone else? I can't bear this honor. This honor doesn't belong to me. Alas, what a pity. The City Lord sighed softly, then used his mental power to lift up 3 cups, filled them with happy water, and handed them to the 2 people. Yuanzi took the cup hesitantly. Lord City Lord, can you read my mind? He found that his perception of flow seemed to be useless in front of the City Lord. This feeling made him feel a little uneasy, as if he was running naked with no secrets. You have also unlocked the spiritual gene lock in advance, and so have I. The City Lord drank the happy water and took another glass. The City Lord smiled slightly and put down the cup in his hand. My ability is the heart net, which can sense other people's emotions and thoughts. But don't worry, I will not pry into other people's privacy at will. As for Kong Junxi, he did deserve it, but considering that he is a member of the Kong family, I will still give him a chance to reform. Of course, this is not because I want to favor him, but out of consideration for the overall situation. Humph, you wanted to let him go from the beginning. That's true, but the world of adults is not that simple. After all, Xincheng and the Kong family are about to have a big cooperation. But later, he cursed me in his heart, so I thought of using your words to lock him up. Didn't I offend you, too? You sharp-tongued little fellow, you are exactly like your master when he was young. The City Lord did not pay attention to his words but smiled instead. You two know each other. Of course I know him, we're old friends. My name is Zhang Zisheng, you can call me City Lord Zhang. We've been playing together since we were young, and we both have deep connections with the Zhang and Li families. Seeing that Yuanzi was still looking at him doubtfully, the City Lord knew what he was thinking, so he pointed at the masked man and said, take off the mask and let him see your true face. The masked man hesitated for a moment, but finally took off his mask. When Yuan saw his true face, he was stunned and suddenly became tense. Ha ha ha, we are acquaintances, right? The City Lord laughed. Now you should believe me. Yuanzi shook his head helplessly. I really admire you, City Lord Zhang. Okay, you guys go out first. I have something to talk to him alone. The City Lord signaled the masked man to leave. The masked man was very impatient. He turned around and left without stopping for a moment, leaving behind only the sound of bang. As the door was closed, the curtains were also pulled up following City Lord Zhang's mental power. Your master has finally found himself again. Ah. He arranged something for me. Do you want to know? City Lord Zhang looked at him with a smile, not looking like a City Lord at all. Don't keep me in suspense, City Lord Zhang. You should be able to see this. Yuan's could indeed see strands of silk radiating outward from City Lord Zhang's shiny head. I can see the shiny. I don't like to hear that. Say it again. Quote. Yuan's couldn't understand it. This City Lord was a powerful person who was above the Nirvana level, but why did he still have the attitude of a naughty boy? Coupled with that shiny hair, it was really laughable. I can see the threads coming out of your head, they can hold up the cups and draw the curtains. That's right. This is a way to project one's spirit outwards. It's a secret of the Zhang family. It complements the Li family's internal strength, body and spirit. I can't learn it. Aren't secret teachings and secret manuals all branded with special instruments? Yuan's rolled his eyes, still remembering the restriction his master had mentioned before. Ever since I broke through the nirvana level and reached the level of a scout, the mark has been automatically erased by my powerful mental power. Zhang Zisheng sat on the corner of the table with one leg astride it in a strange posture, with the other leg dangling in the air. A scout-level expert. Li Haisheng, the same thing. I didn't tell you this. After the nirvana level is the planetary level. The full name of the Star Scout level is the planetary exploration level, because this level can consume source power to briefly move around in the space near the blue star. After a person reaches the peak of nirvana, the body has undergone a leap forward change. The key to whether one can break through the nirvana level lies in whether the mental power can undergo the same qualitative change as the body. But, will there be any benefit to you in teaching me this secret? Want to drink again? City Lord Zhang poured another glass of happy water. Yuan's took it and drank it all. That was a long time ago. Quote. I see. So my master must have done you a favor. If he hadn't helped me back then, it would have been your master who became a scout-level expert. I've always owed you favors. For people at our level, the most frightening thing is not repaying the favors we owe. If we keep owing favors, we may never be able to repay them in this lifetime, and in the end, it becomes a demon in our hearts. Oh, that's what happened. Your master found me some time ago and asked me to teach you the secrets of the Zhang family. But I guess it's hard for you to understand. I didn't fully comprehend it until I was in my 20s, and I didn't complete my training until I broke through to the scout level. Where has master gone? He didn't tell me. Boy, are you going in the wrong direction. Shouldn't you ask me why the secret method is so difficult? Why? City Lord Zhang was a little amused and felt that Yuan's comprehension was really poor. He didn't know what Li Haisheng saw in him. He felt that it was impossible for Yuan's to succeed in cultivation with his qualifications. My family's secret method has been revised with scientific theories. It is based on the obscure quantum mechanics. By the way, have you learned this part? At least you should know the wave function and Schrödinger equation. I just learned this part. Then try it. City Lord Zhang connected to Yuan's brain through the wires emitted from his shiny head and transmitted all the cultivation methods to him. Yuan's felt that this was an extremely profound secret method. Even if it was fully announced, few people in this world would be able to practice it completely. Yuan's also calmed down little by little, trying to understand these mysteries in the flow. Chapter 42 Rekindled Fighting Spirit. Quantum field. The basic energy field that makes up the universe, composed of countless microscopic quantum particles that are constantly vibrating and interacting in space. The quantum field is the fundamental reason for the existence and change of all things in the universe, and it is also the source of the practitioner's perception and manipulation of the spirit. The wave function describes the quantum state of a particle and is a complex mathematical function. In spiritual practice, the wave function can be analogous to the state of consciousness of the practitioner. Different states of consciousness correspond to different wave functions. By adjusting their own state of consciousness, practitioners can influence the shape and distribution of the wave function, thereby improving their spiritual level and the effectiveness of their practice. Quote. As the secret techniques were taught more and more deeply, Yuan's felt that his flow had reached a new level, and he was gradually able to understand more profound things. Then, Yuan's entered a state of meditation, and more complex and profound knowledge poured into Yuan's brain at a faster speed until all the knowledge was taught. Although Yuan's himself could only understand a small part of it, it was enough to make Yuan's brain work at a rapid speed, and his mental power also spread out in an exaggerated manner. The spreading mental power attacked the walls of the room, causing the room to shake slightly. His mental power, like Zhang Zisheng's, also produced the effect of acting on real objects. This scene caught Zhang Zisheng off guard. Fortunately, his powerful mental strength offset it in time and prevented it from spreading out of the room. What a freak, Li Haisheng, what kind of disciple did you find? Zhang Zisheng looked at Yuan's, who was in meditation, and couldn't help but admire him. He also felt ashamed of his dismissive attitude towards Yuan's just now. Think about it, when I was young, my spiritual power was probably less than 1/3 of his, and the purity was far inferior to his. As long as his source power can be improved, he should be able to reach the legendary level mentioned in the alien ruins. Alas, you have a good apprentice, Li Haisheng. But what you have to face is not an ordinary difficulty. Even I am helpless against the dark and deep human soul. Even now, I can only realize my ideals and ambitions in a mechanical city. This is almost my limit. Zhang Zisheng just sensed a strong spiritual fluctuation from Yuan's and realized his unfathomable potential. It should not be difficult for him to become a strong man like himself. There was a gleam of burning light in Zhang Zisheng's eyes, and even he himself felt the fire in his heart reviving, as if ignited by his performance. This kid is really something to look forward to. Zhang Zisheng's emotions also fluctuated violently. The fearlessness in Yuan's mental power infected him and produced a strong resonance with his mental power. What was incredible to him was that this resonance was actually breaking down the bottleneck that had troubled him for many years. This reminded him of what Li Haisheng said, that meeting Yuanzi for the first time was like a miracle. Different from Li Haisheng's understanding of Tao follows nature, Zhang Zisheng felt a kind of fearlessness of being detached from the world. He looked at Yuan silently. The emotions that had been pent up for many years, the edges that had been smoothed by time, were gradually returning. This fearless emotion seemed to be reshaping itself with an unstoppable momentum. This is the will of the strong. Zhang Zisheng thought of his second brother, who was very similar to Yuan's. But he was abandoned in the depths of the misty forest and became an uncared-for victim in the struggle. He took out an old bracelet from his pocket and read the communication between his second brother and himself word by word. One day 17 years ago, Zhang Zisheng received a message from his second brother Zhang Zhiji. I'm going to the misty forest to carry out an extremely difficult mission. Don't worry, this is a small case. For me, it's just an ordinary mission. Safety first. Fourth day. He only had two ideas. Oh no, something is wrong with this mission. My spiritual perception tells me that someone has been following me, and I can't find his location, which means his spiritual power is superior to mine. I have to go back quickly. Do you want me to tell the clan? Don't alert the enemy. Day. It may be related to our eldest brother. This is his man. How could he do this? I have to escape quickly. Don't send me a message or I will be exposed. Day 6. This is a selfie video. I have already led him to the deep end, and I will take him with me even if I die. The man in the video was covered in blood, with a huge lightning-shaped scar from his chest to his stomach. Fuck him. If I can get back alive, I will kill Zhang Zicheng. 7th day. He's dead, and I'm done too. Remember not to seek revenge on your elder brother. I found a fragment that may be related to this. I'll hide the bracelet. Remember the coordinates. Remember to destroy the communication equipment. Be natural. Brother, you are still young, you have to protect yourself. Quote. Later, in order to hide these secrets, I became an outspoken person. Being open-minded and having no ulterior motives is the key to keeping this secret. 5 years had passed until I was able to step into the misty forest. I found Zhang Zhiji's bracelet and the fragment that had not completely faded. Before he knew it, Zhang Zisheng's eyes were filled with tears, which were the emotions that had been pent up for 17 years. As the tears fell little by little, Zhang Zisheng became more and more excited, the resonance became stronger and stronger, and the bottleneck collapsed faster and faster. At that moment, Zhang Zisheng broke through to the second level of the scout level, and the surging source power directly blew away the newly awakened Yuan's. Why do I always encounter this kind of situation? Yuanzi was very puzzled while flying in the air. Li Haisheng had encountered the same thing before. However, Zhang Zisheng's mental power soon held Yuan's back and pulled him back in front of him. You have made a breakthrough. This was not the first time Yuan's had seen this kind of situation, so he naturally knew what was going on. Yes, how come you two can break through anytime and anywhere? Come here. Zhang Zisheng squatted down and leaned his forehead against Yuan's forehead. So disgusting, you're a pervert. Yuan's used his hands and feet to try to get away from Zhang Zisheng. But the moment of contact, Yuan stopped struggling and digested the information in his mind in disbelief. This turned out to be City Lord Zhang's valuable experience, which could help him avoid many detours in the process of spiritual practice. Zhang Zisheng let go of his hand and stood up. Thank you. What? This is a small token of my appreciation. What happened? I have seen a lot in you. This has nothing to do with your master. It is purely my personal opinion. Your future practice will depend on you. Why do you two brothers say that? What is there to learn from me? You are all so strong, I should be the one learning from you. We were just born earlier than you. I'm so sorry. Yuan's touched his head. Just do your own thing well, nothing else matters, your growth is the most important. It's almost time, you can go now. Before Yuanzi walked into the elevator, he suddenly said, I have a request. Don't be so rude to me. Zhang Zisheng paused for a moment and stroked his chin. Tell me, what do you want? Give Chris a statue. People need to know about him. The Sanchez family. This is a free city. It should follow its own rules. Besides, didn't you lock up Kong Junxi? You shouldn't be so timid and be influenced by external things. Zhang Zisheng smiled sincerely when he heard this answer. He waved his hand, agreeing to Yuanzi. Zhang Zisheng watched Yuan's being pulled away little by the elevator. He felt like something was missing in his heart, but what followed was abundant motivation, which gave him the courage to face reality. He took out the fragment. On it is an ancient font, Ghost Plague. Chapter 43 Drawings. Here are the expenses and additional materials. Help me forge a pair of shadow twin blades. Okay, Mr. Yuan, I'll do it right away. When the service desk was arranging the manufacture of weapons, Yuan's came over to watch curiously and asked Astra what the materials were used for. You should remember the fiber optic horns, which are used to make the entire high-energy emission cavity. The feathers of the shining eagle have microcapacitor structures, which can adjust the angle and density of the feathers to control the distribution of the electric field. The fur surface of the shadow beast has a layer of biological nanostructured fibers that can hide the light blade, making the attack more concealed. Anti-source metal is a product of iron ore that has been transformed by the mutation source. It has the function of stabilizing the fluctuations of source power and is one of the most commonly used key materials for source power weapons. Why did you choose this weapon? Don't you think the others are better? Yuan's asked, pointing at the drawings of other weapons on the screen. Astra hesitated for a while, afraid of hurting Yuanzi, but still said, ahem, because you have no money, this is the weapon with the lowest consumables and crafting costs. It really hurts, but you may not have to worry about this problem in a while. Do this first. Its power may not be low. Jens didn't question Astra this time, and followed the waiter to the manufacturing plant where the weapons were made. A noisy mechanical sound immediately flooded into Yuan's ears. The light inside the factory is soft, and the huge ceiling is inlaid with several rows of laser lights. The light they emit is intertwined with the colorful indicator lights flashing when the machines are running. The tall robotic arms danced in the air, emitting laser beams like meteors in the night sky, while the workers were like astronauts traveling between the stars, busy and orderly performing their respective tasks in various areas of the factory. Materials scientists stare closely at the molecular structure data calculated by supercomputers, discussing how to optimize the alloy ratio. Weapon designers wear virtual helmets and present the weapon structures imagined in their minds on the screen. Mechanical engineers shuttle between rows of towering robotic arms and command them with the industrial intelligent devices in their hands. Deep learning mode on. Astra immediately and quietly hacked into the Weapons Manufacturing Bureau's system, and with the help of the process flow that Yuan's could now see, he studied the knowledge of weapons manufacturing. What is this pattern? This is a model for rapid deep learning in areas that I am not familiar with. My master is really amazing. You keep calling your master all the time, but when the good stuff comes out later, you can just beg me for mercy. Yuan's felt strange when he heard this. Astra seemed to be imitating the sharp-tongued way he spoke to City Lord Zhang, and also seemed to be complaining to Yuan's. Mr. Yuan, these are all the materials you need to make weapons. Please take a look. Yeah, no problem. Finally, a chip will be etched inside the weapon to achieve semi-automatic operation. The total production cost is. No need for an automatic control chip. I have a better chip here. Just leave me a universal data interface. Who is so arrogant? An engineer nearby found it very funny. When could an outsider challenge them, the professionals? Yuanzi ignored his doubts and said, I will enter a copy of my revised drawings into the system later and manufacture it according to the above process. Ha ha ha, where is the blueprint? Let me see. The engineer just now put down what he was doing and walked over with a smirk on his face. Someone next to him seemed to want to persuade him and even pulled him back, but he broke free. I'm still thinking about it. I'll be able to input it in a while. Yuan's kept urging Astra to finish quickly in his mind, but she was not in a hurry, saying that slow work produces fine work. Ha ha ha, colleagues, did you hear that? He said he is still thinking about the design drawings in his mind. It's simply unheard of. It's really going to make you laugh out loud. The engineer pointed at Yuan's and laughed. At this time, very oppressive words came from upstairs. You're fired. Deputy Director, why? The employee also recognized whose voice it was. Hasn't I made it clear enough? You're fired. I have elderly parents and young children at home, I can't lose this job. Do you need me to repeat it? The engineer looked dejected. He took off his work clothes and threw them at Yuan's, as if he felt that he was the cause of his unemployment. Not only him, but other people who were talking around him also had the same idea. Hello, Yuan's. A not very tall man walked down the stairs and greeted Yuan's in a friendly manner. Hello. Yuan's answer was very stiff, and his attitude didn't seem to change because of his identity. Then you go ahead and do your work. The man didn't stay with Yuan's for long and hurried upstairs. The discussions of the people around became even louder, their whispers could still be heard in the rumbling factory building. But Yuan's embarrassment remained unabated. First, he was put in a difficult situation by Astra, and then someone came to help him inexplicably. Yuan's really hoped that someone would come to the rescue sincerely. Brother-in-law, why didn't you tell me earlier? The little fat man jumped out from the side at some point. This address made Yuan's even more embarrassed. He held his forehead with one hand, speechless. You are Ji Schweren's younger brother, right? You finally admitted that you like my sister. Last time I went home, I got the idea about you from my sister. The fat boy didn't know how to understand it. He stood there with his hands on his hips, looking very proud. Rick also leaned against the wall, as if watching a show. When did you two get here? It's just a little bit earlier than you. But who can be stronger than you? You are so tough even in front of the deputy director of the manufacturing bureau. But then again, can you really design the blueprints for improving weapons? I've been thinking about this too. If you'd told us earlier, we could have helped. Rick walked to Yuan's side and whispered, if you can really change it, please help us change it. Yuan smiled slightly, and Astra told him that the drawings had been redrawn and some adjustments had been made to the process. No problem, give me the blueprint and I'll try it. Yuan's first entered his own drawings into the system, and then received the drawings sent by the two people. Please help me, I won't blame you anymore. Yuan's coaxed Astra. That's right, it would be great if it was done earlier. It's just a good opportunity for me to practice. Practice. Don't worry, nothing will go wrong. I just used all my computing power to think for a long time. Astra is a bit like a little girl who can be happy with a little coaxing. Yuan's pretended to adjust the weapon design on the holographic screen of the bracelet, but in fact it was Astra who was making the modifications. Although most of the passing engineers were dismissive, they didn't say anything for the sake of the deputy director's face. Until one engineer took a glance and was attracted by the changes on the holographic projection, Yuan's actions gradually attracted the attention of countless engineers. That's so embarrassing, are you okay, Astra? Almost there, just one last detail. As Yuan's pretended to press the last key and sent the drawings to the two of them, the engineers around him who were holding their breath suddenly went wild. Who is this kid? Why is he so powerful? I don't know, but he seems to have a powerful background. I heard that his two friends are from big families, and there's also the deputy director. Yuan's didn't care at all. He stretched lazily as if he had accomplished something that was a matter of course. The students around were also talking about it, and soon the news became a hot topic in the training camp, and countless people came to attend. After doing all this, it didn't take long for the first modified, Shadow Double Blade, to be produced. Try it, you will definitely be surprised. Astra said proudly and seemed very happy. This is a pair of two-handed weapons, which are condensed from pure light, exuding an otherworldly temperament. The overall shape of the weapon is smooth and elegant, and every detail reveals a unique sense of design. Yuan's connected it to his battle suit, and with a thought the weapon entered combat mode. The thin light curtain was almost invisible, and only by careful observation could one see that it was a blade, which seemed to be made of a seemingly transparent but indestructible material. This weapon has a very powerful ability, which is that it can resonate with your spirit, using the exclusive power of spiritual force to arouse the emotions of others. It seems like you've thought about it from the beginning. You're really considerate of me. No. Astra gave Yuan's the illusion of being shy. Yuan swung his sword, and the air seemed to be split by the high-temperature energy of the light blade, and was cut in half by a white strip of gas, and even cut the protective gear of a test man far in front of him. After the entire test, the weapon's original rating of D was upgraded to C, while the cost remained unchanged. The students around rushed up when they saw this scene, followed Yuan's, and chattered, asking Yuan's to modify the drawings. Yuan's had no choice but to pay a deposit of 3 per person, but everyone was still enthusiastic and clamored to pay the deposit first. Because the materials and costs of upgrading weapons to the next level would at least double, which was far less cost-effective than upgrading the blueprints. Yuan's raised the deposit to 12, giving priority to the softly mutated source crystals. Some people even used contribution points to directly exchange for modification quotas. The fired engineer held the cardboard box and looked at Yuan's with dissatisfaction as he was surrounded by people and received various drawings. In the end, he left in shame. Yuan's received orders for several days, and there were also many improvement commissions from the Weapon Manufacturing Bureau. The Weapon Manufacturing Bureau was rich, and the deposit alone was tens of millions of source crystals. How long will it take you to process this stuff? It will take about 3 weeks. I will also build a simple transaction system so that you can automatically receive the balance. You can go to the Green Assessment Building to continue your training. Yuan's weighed a few small pieces of soft source crystals and felt very happy. Making money is so enjoyable. Subscribe to Chinese Novel Audiobook YouTube channel. Chapter 44, Astra Who Cannot Understand Emotions. Another refreshing day. Yuanzi walked out of the Green Assessment Tower in a happy mood. He had already reached the limit of his current strength. He went to the front desk to check the task list, hoping to find some new challenges to hone his strength. As Yuanzi's eyes quickly shuttled through the task list, an unsettling task caught his attention. Quote, D-level mission, individual mission, S province missing case. 01. Mission address, SO2 and S Mechanical City. 2. Mission background. In the past 2 years, incidents of missing students have frequently occurred in Province S, attracting widespread attention. These sudden disappearance cases have caused deep concern among parents, schools and society, and have also had an impact on the local educational environment and social stability. To address this issue, Province S is taking active measures to ensure the safety of students and find the whereabouts of missing students. Province S secretly requested the assistance of the elite training camp. The specific information is in the confidential archive room of S01 Mechanical City. 3. Current status of the mission area. 1. S01 Mechanical City. Located in the northern part of S Province, it is the center of S Province. In the past 2 years, cases of missing students have occurred in the area, causing panic and anxiety among local residents. Currently, S01 Machinery City has stepped up its security and carried out strict identity checks on people entering and leaving. 2. S02 Mechanical City. Located in the southern part of S Province, it has a developed economy and many enterprises and research institutions. Security in the city has been stepped up, but there is a risk of confidential information being leaked by insiders. IV. Mission objectives. Main target. Go deep into the S01 and S02 mechanical cities to assist in investigating the causes, background, and masterminds of the students' disappearances, and find at least one missing student. Other goals. Goal 1. Investigate and obtain detailed names and background information about missing students. Goal 2. Check the security system of the Machinery City to find possible security loopholes or weak links. 5. Rewards. After S Province is confirmed, the main goal is 800 contribution points, and each other goal is rewarded with 400 points for each completion. Quote, Yuan's accepted this mission without hesitation, as well as another mission to defeat the Source Beast requested by Astra. D-level mission, hunting mission, the rebellious Shining Eagle. S Province is far away from here, and it takes too long to get there by plane. Last time, it took several hours to get to the meeting point. Yuan's had no choice but to use the portal, so that he could reach his destination in an instant. The portal to the University of Science and Technology in S01 Mechanical City. Yuan swiped his card to activate the portal, and the eyes of his classmates around him revealed envy. The high cost made the portal uncommon, so his action caused a small sensation. Yuanzi didn't say anything extra. He quickly stepped into the hole of the portal. As the portal shrank little by little, he disappeared from everyone's sight. Thump. Yuanzi would fall down almost every time he came out of the portal, because the environment of the portal was too chaotic. For Yuanzi, who had sharp 5 senses, it would be a strong feeling of dizziness. Why are you here? A man saw Yuan's lying on the ground and kindly pulled him up. It's okay. Yuan's thought the person behind him was asking him why he fell, but when he turned around, he found it was his old squad leader Zuyi. The two of them got along well, and Yuan's knew that he was particularly good at science. He must have been studying in the top science class at the University of Science and Technology. The night was rolling in, and Yuan's planned to have a quick meal first, and then chat. Maybe he also knew some information about missing students. After all, there were cases of missing college students. Yuan's took him to a restaurant, which looked to have a nice decoration. Don't come here. It's expensive. We are all students of the University of Science and Technology and can't afford it. What's more, there are only private rooms for VIPs. There is no open seating. Yuan smiled, patted his shoulder, and put his arm around him as he walked into the door. When the proprietress thought that they were just 2 ordinary students and was about to deal with them casually, Yuan's took out his ID card of the elite training camp. Then, the two of them were led into the private room. Yuanzi, you've become successful. I thought you got into the University of Science and Technology, but I didn't expect you to be admitted to the elite training camp. I thought you all knew. Alas, what a pity. Nearly half of our former class is disabled. Several of my former buddies are still in the hospital. Without further ado, let me toast you a glass and congratulate you on getting into the elite training camp. Zuyi raised the glass high, then lowered it, knocked on the table, and drank it all in one gulp. We are classmates, it would be too strange to be so polite. Yuan's also drank the beer in his glass. You are the only one in our class who has made it big. The old monitor sighed. No, I came back to talk to Harma. He is currently training in the martial arts school. Halma, his family has the money to train in a martial arts school, but that doesn't count. By the way, you 3 brothers, why is there no news about Hekan now? Their family seems to have disappeared, and I haven't contacted him for a long time. Yuan's couldn't reveal the purpose of his trip, so he could only lay out a bait to see if he knew anything. I've also heard recently that students have been going missing in the past 2 years. Some time ago, even students from universities and martial arts schools went missing, which led to the strengthening of security measures throughout the province. Zuyi poured himself another glass of wine and drank it. Are you so brave now? The security in the university is quite strict, and the people who enter the martial arts school are basically the children of the rich and powerful, right? I also heard it from others, but what happened in college is definitely true. Yuan's watched Zhu Yi guzzle beer after beer and barely eat any of his food. He seemed to be worried about something. Yuan's did not continue to ask questions, but continued to drink and eat with him and chat about some light topics. Alas, I still have to vent. Yuan's felt that Zhu Yi was obviously a little drunk. His face gradually turned red as the alcohol spread through his body. This was supposed to be a symbol of enthusiasm, but his eyes lost their luster and the enthusiasm gradually died out. You know what? She's missing too. Who? Sun Wanwen. Oh, I remembered. Yuan's remembered the girl that his old squad leader had always had a crush on. He heard that she had also been admitted to the University of Science and Technology. It was no wonder that he was sad about her disappearance. Last month, Zhu Yi drank another glass of wine. I just confessed to her and she agreed. I was really happy at that time. He sat quietly at the table, holding the wine glass tightly in his hand, with a gleam of light in his eyes. But then he finished the wine in the glass in one gulp, and the whole person was overwhelmed by dullness. Can you understand me? Yes, old squad leader. Yuan's quickly poured him a glass of wine. I remember it very clearly. 3 days later, on that Friday, I asked her out to go to the movies the next day. We had already agreed on it. Zhu Yi suddenly became excited again. I couldn't contact her the next day. I looked for her everywhere but couldn't find her. I was so anxious. But Zhu Yi fell into depression again. I tried everything but it was useless, including my roommate, the counselor, and even his parents. On Monday, I went with her parents to report the case. Zhu Yi drank the wine that Yuan's poured. I remember the police officer simply registered it and said that there have been a lot of reports of this kind recently and they are already overwhelmed. And then, Yuan's poured him another glass. Zhu Yi picked up the wine glass and put it back. The police officer was actually a nice person. I shouldn't have gotten angry at him. But he was quite polite. He even reminded me to be careful and said that a lot of students have gone missing recently. Suddenly, Zhu Yi must have thought of something. His eyes seemed to shine and he stared at Yuanzi with his eyes open. Can you help me? You are a student in the elite training camp. You are a talented person who is both civil and military. You are the pillar of China. Please help a poor man like me for the sake of our friendship. Yuan's watched Zhu Yi cover his face, but he couldn't stop him from sobbing. Do you remember the policeman who registered your report? Zhu Yi raised his hand and gently wiped away the tears from the corners of his eyes fixed on Yuanzi, as if he wanted to confide his inner pain. However, the sadness surged like a tide, making his throat seem to be tightly strangled by an invisible force, and he was speechless for a moment, unable to speak. Yuan's patted his back gently and watched quietly, waiting for Zhu Yi's emotions to gradually calm down and for him to find his voice again. His name is Fan Chengming, his phone number is. Okay, I'll contact him tonight. Yuan slowly comforted Zhu Yi, and when he was a little more stable, he personally sent him back to the dormitory and found a hotel to stay in. Yuan's was lying on the bed, thinking about the encounter with his classmate today, and found that his emotions were not as intense as before. Astra, do you understand? I still don't fully understand human emotions, let alone love. I can only explain it theoretically. I know that humans are full of love at the beginning of a relationship, but then it slowly fades. In fact, it is very likely that the other person is still as good to you as before, and it has not changed at all. It is just your feelings that have changed. The same love is just like plain water to you, without any feeling. That's because science shows that human senses and perceptions do not follow a linear relationship, but a logarithmic relationship. Just like one speaker at home is already the loudest, but to double the volume you have to add 9 more, not just 1. Astra explained in a very formal manner. So when we want to get a stronger feeling, we have to feel the stimulus more strongly than it would otherwise, because the senses pay more attention to proportions rather than absolute values. That's the first law of psychology, Weber's law. If you're going to paraphrase the theory, you better stop talking about it. Yuan's interrupted Astra's meaningless chatter. Please help me contact Officer Fan Chengming on the training camp's dedicated channel. He will definitely not refuse to talk to me. Chapter 45 The Tip of the Iceberg. The next day, inside the confidential archive room of S01 Mechanical City, Yuan stood alone in front of the densely packed information shelves. In this age of the internet and electronics, there are still a lot of information in paper form. His sharp eyes scanned every file. At the same time, Astra quietly started up, and her intelligent program silently penetrated into the system of confidential files. In this digital ocean composed of complex algorithms and strict security protocols, Astra was like a shark swimming in the deep sea of information, flexible and swift. Sun Wanwen, 19 years old, missing for 43 days. The last time she appeared was in a surveillance camera in the back hills of Hakust. Quote. Yuan's looked through a lot of information that could be searched in the confidential archives room, and the files of various registered, missing cases, were all very complete. Alas, most of this is useless information. Astra, make a detailed summary of what I just saw and the information you obtained, and mark the missing location on the map. Yuan's didn't want to come here, but he came here anyway to make it easier for Astra to hack into this confidential archive that is not connected to the internet. I've done it. I've stored all the information that might be useful. Let's go. Astra's information flashed in Yuan's mind, and he quickly left his current location without hesitation. Yuan's mind was unusually clear. He planned to go to Mr. Yang to discuss countermeasures first, and at the same time let Astra analyze the data alone and screen out valuable information. Yuan's was thinking about his next move while hurrying on his way, when unexpectedly he bumped into a pedestrian who was hurrying in from the door. Ah, it hurts to death. When Yuan's accidentally knocked her down, the girl staggered slightly but soon regained her balance. She raised her head and noticed Yuan's, with a flash of surprise and disgust in her eyes, but she quickly regained her composure. She was dressed in a white dress and pretended to tidy up her messy hair. Her brows were slightly furrowed as she picked up the documents on the ground while quickly assessing her surroundings. Yuan squatted down and wanted to help the girl pick up the documents, but he was slapped in the face when he stretched out his hand. It seems that this girl doesn't want to accept your advances. Astra never misses the opportunity to see Yuan's make a fool of himself. Since he didn't accept it, Yuan's had no intention of staying and strode out. Yuan's walked to a place where there were not many people walking around and stretched out his hand to block the sunlight. The palm of the hand seemed to be burned by a tiny flame, with slight red spots. Against the red background, the texture of the palm seemed to become clearer, with a few small words on it. It's an emergency, lab. He used his hands and feet to climb over the wall made of piles of rubble, and finally came to an invisible door that blended in with the surrounding rubble. After carefully confirming his identity, he walked in without hesitation. You're here. As Yuan's vision went from light to darkness, he saw a lonely figure leaning on a cane in the empty laboratory. It was an elderly man, his body hunched almost parallel to the ground, as if he was bearing an unspeakable burden. His skin was loose and deeply wrinkled, like a vine circling a dead branch. His existence is like an isolated island in this empty laboratory, quietly waiting for the passage of time. Mr. Yang, what do you want to tell me? I dare not tell Li Haisheng's apprentice to do anything. I just learned that you were investigating your mission in the confidential archives room. There are some things I have to tell you in advance. What's the matter? Stop the investigation and leave it to me. Why? Yuanzi didn't understand. Many people around me are missing. I want to find them. Do you have this strength? Yuan's was speechless and didn't know what to say. At this time, Astra finally completed the analysis and screening of massive amounts of data. The information was projected in the laboratory, helping Yuan's out of the predicament. This is the trajectory of all the missing students in the past 2 years and a heat map of the missing areas. Astra explained to the two through the laboratory's loudspeaker equipment. Yuan's and Mr. Yang both frowned, because so many students disappeared in the blind spots of surveillance, and their final behaviors were very abnormal, as if they had no consciousness of their own. This was not done by the Li family. They would not take such a big risk in their own territory. Old Yang pointed at the red dots surrounding the Li family on the projection. From the time point of view, the disappearances of students are becoming more and more frequent, and it seems that the other party is a bit impatient. If it is a C-virus experiment, there is no need to be so impatient. Yuan's added his thoughts. Do you find it strange? Yuanzi slid his thumb and index finger towards each other, and the map was instantly magnified several times. Look, there is no missing case around the martial arts school, even its own missing students. It seems to be trying to avoid something. Yuanzi saw the enlarged hotspot map. In the eyes of others, they may think that the area around the martial arts gym is relatively safe and no one would cause trouble around it. But this is indeed a point worthy of suspicion. Old Yang thought for a while and expressed his thoughts. That's not true. I found out from the confidential file database that although the number of missing persons cases is not as high as it was a while ago, it is still on the rise. We just managed to suppress it. Moreover, the security is strengthened by martial artists organized by the martial arts school. This is also one of the secrets of Province S that is not disclosed to the public. When the two heard Astra's analysis, they felt a chill down their spines. It seemed that there were spies in both S province and the martial arts school, one inside and one outside, taking care of each other. Could it be Chairman Maohua's problem? Yuan's recalled the time when Chairman Maohua helped Zhang Xiao out of trouble. Could it be related to the Zhang family as well? Yes, I also analyzed all the surveillance footage and did facial recognition on all the missing persons. Now I'm adding a heat map of the most recent missing persons to the map. Astra helped with the analysis and updated the hotspots in green. On the map, the martial arts gym was surrounded by more eye-catching green dots, densely filling the empty space. Haha, no wonder the direction of my recent investigation went astray. I always thought these guys didn't dare to move around near the martial arts gym. It seems like they are all a group of guys in collusion. Why did he release these people? Is there any record of that? Yes, look at this. This is also information that the archives room does not disclose to the public. Yuan's and Mr. Yang watched for a long time. Without exception, these missing and returning students had suffered varying degrees of mental trauma. The mildest ones had blurred memories, while the most serious ones suffered from dementia. Astra, do you have data on other missing persons? Yes, but the number is extremely large. I have already screened out the missing cases that have no connection with each other. I have marked them on the map with yellow dots. The scale of the map was reduced again, and a large number of yellow dots appeared on it, and the distribution of these yellow dots was almost irregular. Mr. Yang clicked on a few of the yellow dots and relevant information popped up. Gu Kunrui, male, 43 years old, doctor of medicine. Dong Xiaofeng, female, 65 years old, retired attending physician. Quote. These two pieces of information gave Yuan some inspiration. Astra, filter out all the yellow dots of missing persons that are not medically related, and then draw the path they took in the days before they disappeared. As Astra carried out Yuan Zi's instructions, everything became clear, and a secret was revealed. These people who disappeared in the past few days all passed by the martial arts hall, almost without exception. They all pointed to the martial arts hall in SO1. Yuan saw that old Yang had turned off the projection. His hands were trembling slightly, and even the cane in his hand was shaking. Old Yang's lips were trembling, and he made a trembling sound. The Li family, the Zhang family, Province S, the martial arts school, how did the organization, Ghost Plague, penetrate so deeply and so widely? Elder Yang looked at Yuan's with a complicated look. He experiencedly sensed the key to the problem. Everything that was happening was like a giant storm with Yuan's is the eye, which was gradually spreading at an unstoppable speed, and its influence and destructive power were spreading at an accelerated rate. Mr. Yang felt that this storm would definitely bring unprecedented challenges and changes. Elder Yang watched Yuan's, who was communicating and sorting data with Astra, and his heart was moved. He seemed immature, but his persistence and perseverance were like an invisible force, making Elder Yang feel insignificant. Thinking back to his past, this cowardice was nowhere to be hidden behind Yuan's back. I feel so ashamed of myself. He recalled his past that he couldn't bear to look back on, the self who had betrayed his friends, the self who had abandoned his wife and children, the self who had lived a miserable life. Old Yang couldn't understand why he was so easily shaken by him. Li Haisheng is the same, so am I, and the friends around him. He withdrew his gaze from Yuan's, but the melancholy containing complex emotions still lingered in his heart. Yuan Zi, I will help you, but first, I need to tell you something. Mr. Yang, please speak. Mr. Yang asked Yuan's and Harma to go to his pawn shop in the next few days, and specifically told them not to discuss these things anywhere else. He also explained many things to Yuan's in detail, and finally gave him a letter of some importance and asked him to give it to someone. Mr. Yang, there's no need to do this. Why do you have to explain everything in such detail? I'll come back to you if I need anything in the future. There's no need to do this. Old Yang walked to the door, was slightly stunned when he heard these words, and stood still. Yuan's noticed that the old man's profile revealed a fearless spirit, as if proving that under his hunched body, he still hid an indomitable heart. He turned his head, his squinting eyes opened, and he looked at Yuan seriously. Then, the wrinkles on his face were pushed aside, and he showed Yuan's a warm and kind smile. The look in old Yang's eyes was like a grandfather looking at his grandson, imagining the day when he would achieve great things in the future on a comfortable afternoon. See you later. Subscribe to Chinese Novel Audiobook YouTube channel. Chapter 46 Chaotic Space. Inside the private room, the subtle scent of sandalwood interweaves with the rich aroma of coffee. The classical Chinese calligraphy and paintings hanging on the wall and the western clock below quietly tell the vicissitudes of history. The ceiling is inlaid with spherical objects covered with hexagons, which automatically adjust the light in the room according to people's mood. Hey, you're pretty good. You've already established a connection with Mr. Sun's pawn shop in just a few months. Halma sat on a rosewood armchair, took a sip of the coffee, and looked around the room with interest. In fact, it was Yuan's outstanding performance in the training camp and the unique products he brought that made us decide to give him the highest membership treatment. After saying that, the housekeeper slowly stood up and walked towards the door. You guys continue chatting, I won't disturb you, call me anytime if you need anything. As the door was gently closed, the mechanical sound of the combination lock was heard. Mr. Sun's house is really charming. It is a combination of Chinese and Western styles, a fusion of technology and classics. Yeah, he's rich. How is your source power now? Have you come up? I'm here in the morning. I'll be able to enter the official level soon, but I feel like something is missing. Ha ha ha, I have already mastered some techniques of activating source power, and I am now a formal 3rd level source warrior. Do you still remember the assessment of the top class? You lost to me, and now you should be even more unable to beat me. Damn it, you have the nerve to say that. I lost because I fought you head-on. Yuanzi said as he pushed his hand facing outwards towards him, indicating that he was not convinced. Halma retracted his curious gaze and instead stared closely at Yuan's. By the way, do you have any plans for your return this time? There is one thing I should have thought of earlier. The old man in white robe is the vice director of the martial arts school. The disappearance of these people should be related to him, and it is very likely related to me. It's unlikely. Hekin was the one behind this, there's no doubt about that. But what good would it do him if he made such a big deal about a disappearing student? Yuan's told him in detail about his conversation with Fan Chengming and the clues he got in the laboratory, while letting Astra project them. Fan Chengming's call record is divided into two parts. After Yuan's vaguely introduced his purpose, the two switched to an encrypted channel for the call. Fan Chengming told him that the higher-ups had suppressed all these matters, and all the files on the missing cases had been transferred to the Archives Bureau. Moreover, the higher-ups seemed to have different views on the matter, and he had now accepted a commission from one party and was also secretly investigating the matter. As Hyalma listened, he frowned, nodded, and fell into a state of thought. Where did the martial arts school hide these people? Halma was confused. He flipped through the photos on the projector, but he had hardly seen these missing people. Boom! The deafening explosion interrupted their conversation. They rushed out of the door and were hit by a fierce airflow carrying dust, making it almost impossible for them to open their eyes. At this moment, the ordinary clothes on Yuan's and Harma quickly turned into battle suits as if they were summoned, and they entered combat status in an instant. When they stood firm and tried to see the surroundings through the dust and debris, not far away, the butler was lying quietly on the ground, motionless, his clothes torn to shreds by the shock wave of the explosion. The butler's face was gray and covered in thick dust, and his features were almost invisible. There were many holes on his body, which were wounds pierced by explosion fragments. Blood slowly flowed out of these holes, mixing with dust and clothing fragments. Jens dodged the source force bullets that penetrated the shield from a distance while giving orders to Astra. Astra, analyze the battle situation. Mr. Yang is not here. There are about 7 low-level Rongtong-level source force robots approaching you. They are trying to crack Mr. Yang's defense system. So you must break through quickly, otherwise you two won't be able to deal with them. Which direction? This route has the highest success rate for a breakout, and there is a portal next to it. I'm trying to crack the code. Where are you going? Why do you care so much? Just run away. Astra passed the route to Yuan's, who then turned on teammate sharing and passed the route to Hyalma. Yuan's pulled Hyalma and ran forward. Mr. Yang's pawnshop doesn't look big, but it has many hidden spaces. The construction of these spaces is very special, just like a 4-dimensional pocket, folding up the limited space. This place called Sun Lao is really magical. Halma exclaimed as he ran. His name is not Mr. Sun, but Mr. Yang. I'll explain this to you later. You have to know that this kind of technology is very difficult, especially when applied to large buildings. I didn't expect it to be like this inside. You two really have a lot of free time. Even with such a crisis in your face, you can still chat so calmly. But the defense system here is quite tight. If you illegally penetrate the plasma barrier once, you have to decipher the quantum secret system again. After they use quantum entanglement to forcibly decipher it, they have to create entangled quantum again. 2 robots have come in. I have cracked the portal. It is in this room. Astra reminded the two that they should not be so lax any longer. The two walked across the room and came to the portal. After confirming with Astra that it was safe, they both walked in at the same time. Halma helped Yuan's up from the ground. Halma couldn't help but curse. Damn. Why are you still here? What's going on? I forgot. I didn't notice. Astra was a little embarrassed. This situation was not recorded in the database. However, when Yuan's fell out of the portal, she found that the environment was wrong. She activated the equipment on her battlesuit to scan the structure of the entire house. It turns out that there is a total dimension line in this house, and it is all made of horn fibers from the jumping rhino, so this pawn shop is not built using the space folding technology. The so-called rooms were actually nodes on this dimensional line, and each node represents an independent space. These spaces are not physically separated in the traditional sense, but are connected to each other through the wonderful properties of dimensional fibers. All rooms are the same node on this dimensional line. In other words, there are countless points on a line, but from one end point of the line, it only has one point. These replica spaces seem independent of each other, but in fact they are all mappings of different states or time points of the original room. By adjusting the vibration frequency or energy state of the dimension line, Mr. Yang can switch freely between different replica spaces, thereby realizing the folding and unfolding of space. After this explanation, both of them instantly understood the structure of the house. In fact, entering a new room means entering a room that is the same as the first room. In this house, the space is, very neatly, disrupted. Astra, can you operate this dimensional thread? Insufficient data to analyze the operation. Astra was a little embarrassed and started singing a little tune in Yuan's mind again, trying to divert his attention. Then can you tell us the structure of the space? Can. Yuan's looked at the structural diagram sent by Astra, thought for a while, gave a cunning smile, and then burst into laughter. Chapter 47 New Tactics. Under Halmar's puzzled gaze, he told him his plan, and this time even Halmar laughed. Naturally, Astra, who shared the same thoughts as Yuan's, also laughed out loud, but Halma couldn't hear it. Now these robots are trapped in a jar. Your idea is really brilliant. We can use any room as the original room. But for these idiots, they will only know that they have inexplicably entered an unknown space. We can then continue to launch sneak attacks and harass them, lure them into different spaces and disperse them, so that they will always stay in one space. That's it. Yuan's and Halma split into two groups and lured the robots that came in one by one into different spaces. Astra also cooperated by hiding and closing the portals in each space, completely cutting off the possibility of them gathering together. Yuan's didn't even need to use his new energy weapons. The two of them just needed to cooperate a little and they destroyed the robots like killing chickens. But what surprised Yuan's was that Halma was actually picking up these scrapped waste. I didn't realize you could pick up trash. Yuan's leaned on the side and watched him, teasing. I am a little embarrassed indeed. This year, the martial arts school opened, and my family said that I have become an adult and they want to train me, so they stopped paying for all expenses except tuition. Vladimir's eldest son is picking up waste. It's really funny. I'm afraid if I take a video, people will say it's a composite. It makes money, it's not shabby. Yes, you can be considered to be making money without doing anything. The two of them fought monsters in a relaxed atmosphere and even got some scraps that could be exchanged for money. But the last one is tricky. I told you two to fight faster just now, but you two didn't listen and just played around. I've already said that source power can make objects evolve. Although the probability is very low, unfortunately today, a 7th-order fusion-level source power robot evolved. Yuanzi looked at Harma who fell to the ground to protect him, activated the source energy weapon Shadow Twin Blades, rushed forward and started to wrestle with the robot. The biggest feature of the last robot is that its body is made up of activated source power, just like a formal-level source warrior. Every attack is accompanied by a strong source power fluctuation, and the air will tremble. And when Yuanzi swung the Shadow Double Blade and slashed at the robot, the source power in the robot responded instantly, activating into miniature defensive force fields on the surface in an ingenious way. These force fields were like indestructible shields, so that Yuanzi's light blade could only create a slight ripple around them. With every collision between the blade and the force field, a sizzling sound erupted in the air. The battle gradually entered a white-hot stage. Although the gene chip had already raised itself to the peak awakening level, even in the overclocked state, its strength and speed were infinitely close to the combat power of the first-order body tempering level. But facing an opponent of this level, Yuan still felt the lack of energy in his body. Yuan's can maintain overclocking for a short time, and consumes a lot of energy. If he can't find a way to defeat this robot as soon as possible, he and Halma will be in danger. Fortunately, this is just an ordinary source power robot. It does not have human combat intelligence, the blessing of AI, sophisticated weapons, or the special technological capabilities of alien beasts. It is just a pure blank slate with only strength and speed. Its overall combat power is not as good as that of a weak low-level body-tempering alien beast. Yuan's fought and retreated, gradually leading it to the portal, and Astra immediately opened a small portal, and Yuan's went in without hesitation. The robot hesitated for a while, but without much thinking ability, it also went forward in pursuit. At this moment, another portal appeared and Yuan's returned through this portal. It turns out that there is a main portal in the pawn shop, which is like the end point of a line, connecting to another portal in each room. Yuanzi smiled slyly, and he deliberately let Astra open a tiny portal, cleverly luring the robot to step into it. At this critical moment, the robot's defense system had a brief loophole, which was the perfect opportunity that Yuanzi had been waiting for. Yuanzi narrowed his eyes and locked onto the robot's exposed power core. He quickly activated his own power form, making it sharper and more deadly. Then, he swung his double blades and stabbed at the core of the robot with a thunderous force. Two loud bangs echoed in the room, announcing that this fierce battle was coming to an end. The robot exploded instantly, and the huge blast wave blew Yuan's away. However, relying on his strong balance and experience of falling many times, he quickly adjusted his posture in the air and landed steadily without falling this time. This one is quite special. It has a reserve energy source in its head. I'll project it to you. Astra transmitted the image to the mask, reminding him to finish off the enemy. You know it even without me telling you. Yuanzi then walked out of the room. He held the double blades tightly, and the last cut accurately pierced the energy reserve in the robot's head. With a crisp sound of metal breaking, the robot's function was completely lost, and the smoke proved that it had completely become a pile of rubbish. You used this single-point entry, multiple-point deployment tactic really well. This is what you said last time. You wanted to show me a different tactic, right? Ha ha ha, I'm just adapting to local conditions. Without you and the gene chip to modify my 5 senses, I wouldn't be able to maintain stability in entering and exiting the portal. Yuan sat on the ground and laughed heartily. It turned out that promotion can only be achieved through battle. After this battle, he understood how to activate the source power, and the source power in his body began to activate like the robot and Hjalma, entering the most important stage of a source warrior, the official level. At this time, Hjalma gradually woke up. However, they soon discovered that there was a more difficult problem, because the house had a spatial structure in the shape of a Mobius strip, and after entering through the first portal, they were trapped inside. After confirming that it was safe with Astra, the two sat down on the ground, picked up the broken source core and the fragments they had picked up, and examined them carefully. Astra, can you analyze anything? I can't analyze it. These are the most basic materials, and the process used is also the most basic. Almost all the power instruments are the most common models. The only difference is that the power core is a little bigger, which makes the robot's strength and speed a little higher. It's already such a big deal. The Security Bureau is not going to let it down. If they really investigate, even the 4 major families will have to bear the consequences. Besides, Mr. Sun is also a big shot in SO1. It's Mr. Yang. By the way, you haven't told me why he. Crack. The portal in front was suddenly opened, and the sudden figure interrupted the conversation between the two. They put on their masks again and switched to combat mode. Chapter 48 Chess Player. What's wrong with you? Yuanzi caught a glimpse of the familiar figure, and hurriedly lowered his mask, rushing forward like an arrow from a bow. Halma followed closely behind him, and the two of them supported Yang Lao's shaky body. The blood from the corner of Yang Lao's mouth dyed his pale beard red. With trembling hands, he pushed Yuan's and Harma back with his cane, and said in a firm voice, "I'm still fine, you guys go." Behind them, another portal slowly opened in the void. Old Yang spurted out another mouthful of blood, staining his front red. "Mr. Yang, let's go together," Yuan shouted anxiously. However, Elder Yang shook his head, his eyes determined. "No, I must destroy everything here. Otherwise, they will track where you are going." The space ahead began to ripple, as if a stone had been thrown into a calm lake. Old Yang ignored his own injuries, nor did he care whether Yuan's and Halma were injured. He only knew that he had to complete his mission. The two only felt an invisible force pushing them suddenly backwards, and the next moment, they were sucked into the portal. At the moment of disappearance, he tried to look forward, only to see that old Yang's figure became increasingly blurred in the shrinking gap in the door, and finally turned into a point of light and disappeared into the endless darkness. Your use of space is still as good as it was back then. A figure slowly emerged from the ripples in front, a tall and majestic old man, his dark glasses could not hide his deep gaze. Li Songming, I didn't expect that we would meet again in this way. Old Yang's voice was low and powerful, echoing in this space. The conditions I proposed at the beginning were not bad, right? Working with young Master Hyaming, with your abilities, you will definitely be valued. Wouldn't it be much better than being an intelligence chief? There was a hint of persuasion in Li Songming's tone. However, Elder Yang just sneered. One of you attacked your own father, and the other attacked your own apprentice. The two of you are really in cahoots with each other and have vicious hearts. Li Songming shook his head gently. I can't help it. You know my ability. Everything I do is for the benefit of the family. For the sake of the overall situation, someone has to make sacrifices. Sacrifice? Humph, aren't you just relying on your ability and fortune-telling? Do you really think you can calculate the fate of the world? Old Yang sneered with disdain. Li Songming was silent for a moment, staring at Mr. Yang closely. What if I say, I can do it? Hearing this, Elder Yang's eyes flashed with a sharp light. Oh. You could have predicted that. Then why did you let Yuanzi run away? How could you have predicted that you would step into my home turf? Li Songming, you'd better pray for yourself. Li Songming nodded slightly, but his smile revealed an unfathomable meaning. Mr. Yang, you and I both know that fate is a mysterious thing. Sometimes, even with the most advanced instruments capturing a trace, it is difficult for people to fully control its direction. Yuan's, that child, may be destined. Hearing this, Old Yang narrowed his eyes slightly, with a hint of cold light flashing in them. HMPH, don't give me that. I know your calculations, Li Songming, very well. However, don't forget that there are always some powers in this world that cannot be seen by your magic. Li Songming shrugged noncommittally. Maybe, but there is one thing I can be sure of, that is, no matter how you and I fight, the general trend of the world has already been determined. All we can do is try our best. Do your best. Elder Yang sneered. That's easy to say. Do you know how many people will suffer because of your selfishness? What you call doing your best means sacrificing the interests of innocent people in exchange for your so-called family glory. Li Songming's face changed slightly, as if he wanted to argue something, but he quickly regained his composure. Mr. Yang, there is no such thing as absolute black and white in this world. Winners and losers are just a page of history. You and I are just pieces on this chessboard. This is called being forced to do things against one's will. Involuntarily. Humph, what an involuntarily. Old Yang laughed out of anger. Li Songming, remember, there are always some people in this world who will not succumb to your calculations. As long as I, Yang, am still alive, I will never let you do whatever you want. Li Songming looked at Old Yang deeply, with a hint of complex emotions in his eyes. Old Yang, you and I have known each other for many years, why do you have to do this? I know you are also thinking about those children. But you have to know that sometimes things in this world are not something you and I can control. Li Songming, don't try that on me. Elder Yang interrupted him abruptly. If you still have feelings for me, just let those children go. They are innocent and should not become victims of your struggle for power and profit. You want to beg me for mercy now. Where were you, old dog, when the master of the family was surrounded by me? I don't know how you got the nerve to talk to me about justice. Ha ha ha, if the sacrifice of a few children can bring peace to society, what's wrong with that? For this cause, I will not hesitate to kill the head of the family. Bah, you are unworthy of being the elder of the Li family. Besides, you owed more than that. You were the one who abandoned your wife and children. Do you know how they died? They died because they covered your escape. I don't want to run away. But as an intelligence chief, exposing your identity is really a bad idea. You must be doing this for that kid Yuan's. Li Songming looked in the direction where Yuan's left, thoughtfully. He is our hope. Old Yang stomped his cane and disappeared with a whoosh. He took advantage of the structure of the house and attacked in a mysterious way. However, Li Songming's abilities are incomparable to the past. He doesn't even need to wear a battle suit with attached AI to accurately predict his position and dodge every attack with ease. On the other hand, each of Yang Lao's attacks became weaker and weaker, and his speed became slower and slower, so that he revealed a fatal flaw. Li Songming struck him lightly, and the battle suit transformed from the cane on Old Yang's body revealed its true form, shattered on the ground, and broke into pieces. Combined with the previous injuries, Old Yang fell completely in a pool of blood, his eyes full of tears and unwillingness. Is this the end? Now you finally have someone you want to sacrifice for. For an intelligence chief like you who hides in the dark, for someone like you who abandons his wife and children and lives a miserable life, this is really unbelievable. After Li Songming finished speaking, he squatted down and said a few secret words to Old Yang, whose pupils gradually dilated. Old Yang, who was lying on the ground motionless, was obviously stimulated by something. His pupils contracted instantly, as if he was having a last burst of light, and he looked at the elder in front of him in disbelief. His body seemed to be injected with adrenaline. He pressed the blood on the ground, straightened his upper body, and tried to lean his back against the wall. He seemed to want to say something to the elder in front of him, but he was choked by the blood in his throat and couldn't say a word. As the space gradually disappeared behind him, Li Songming looked at him with satisfaction. Old Yang leaned against the wall helplessly. He tried to straighten his back and respond to Li Songming's gaze, but his body was no longer under his control. His vision began to become blurred, as if an invisible mist had blocked his eyes. His face was as heavy as a huge rock, making it impossible for him to make any expression. Gradually, his facial muscles became stiff, and all his expressions were frozen at that moment. Li Songming also left this space. He knew that Mr. Yang had made the most correct choice he could make. As for myself, the next goal has already been determined. Chapter 49 Confusing. The two were teleported to Li Haisheng's laboratory. It seemed that this place had not been exposed for the time being. Damn it, we don't even know who the enemy is. Halma helped Yuan's who had fallen to the ground, gritting his teeth in anger. It should be someone from the Li family. I don't think so. Okay. Halma came up to Yuan's and showed him the secret message sent by his family's spy. Li Haisheng broke through to become a scout-level warrior, and returned to the Li family with great force, causing a conflict with the current head of the family, his brother Li Haiming. It is known that Li Songming suddenly turned to Li Haisheng, but Li Haisheng refused. The Li family was then split into three forces: Li Haisheng, Li Haiming, and the elders headed by Li Songming. This was just a short paragraph of text, but the amount of information it revealed was so huge that Yuan's didn't know what to feel for a moment. The two agreed on the latest secret communication channel and discussed their respective tasks. Halma investigated the secrets of the missing people in the martial arts hall, while he went to find the girl who delivered the message to Mr. Yang. Yuan said that Yang Lao told him last time that if he got into trouble, he should go to a small shop in the WX district to find her. He still vaguely remembered some of the streets in Wuxing district. Before his master accepted him as a disciple, his family lived nearby, about half a community away. The environment here is much better than the slums where Yi Yang lives. All the necessary hardware facilities are basically complete, so Yuan still finds it difficult to imagine how Yiyang grew up since he was a child. Yuan's passed by his earliest home along the way. It was empty and there was not a single light in the dark night. He crossed the street, sidled into the alley, hid under the dripping eaves, and walked along the flowing gutters until he reached the end. Soon, Yuan saw that the old plastic plaque was blown by the cold wind, and the torn part in the middle of the plaque, a nearly triangular fragment, was flying in the air. The door was opened, and the girl was standing by the door, looking at him quietly. "I've been waiting for you for a long time. Do you want to change your shoes?" Yuan's looked up at the pairs of slippers displayed on the ground and asked her. Yuan saw that she frowned slightly, with a hint of disdain on her face, just like the arrogance she had last time. "I really don't understand why Grandpa likes someone like you. You can be considered a like-minded person." Yuan's blinked a few times, a little surprised, and understood what was in his arms. He smiled bitterly as she turned and left, then changed his shoes and followed her into the room. Inside is a conference room filled with various equipment that is completely out of place with the environment. "I know. Elder Yang told me that he would come here to find you if anything happened. And you just mentioned your grandfather. If I'm not mistaken. So what? He abandoned his family and lived in this world. It's better that he's dead now. Not to mention that I don't have any concerns about him. If it weren't for the organization's arrangement, I don't want to have anything to do with him again in my life." The girl was directing the computer to retrieve information without any guilt in her heart. "No matter what, he is still your grandfather. This is what Elder Yang asked me to give you. He said that this letter and the things inside are for you." Without even raising her head, the girl glanced at the seal on the letter out of the corner of her eye. She felt that Yuan Zi did have some good points, and her tone softened. "Leave it there. I'll look at it later. What's your name?" "Huh, you don't even know my name. My name is Yang Ziqi. Look at this." Yuan's looked at the projection on the wall. It was information about a missing student named Sun Weiren. It was written in great detail and there was also a video. "Take him to the security bureau. We will notify the training camp. Even if your mission is completed, we will also notify the training camp to upgrade the mission level. I haven't figured it out yet. Do you want to kill more people?" Yang Ziqi's tone became impatient. "Now is not the time. No matter how anxious you are to find your friend, it's useless. It says above that I am to assist you, but that doesn't mean you can act rashly and ruin our plan. Okay then, as for Halmar, you should know that he is quite impulsive. Someone has already gone to talk to him, and he has a special identity. If anything happens to him, the Vladimir family of the Bear Country will not give up. Those people are not really stupid." Yang Ziqi raised her head and looked at Yuan's, her expression becoming serious. "I don't care how much magic potion you give them, but it's useless to me. You have to prove to me that you have the ability. This is also the most important thing for you now. Go ahead, I've sent you the communication frequency and encryption method. If there's any emergency, remember to contact me first. Don't launch an investigation rashly like you did last time." After Yuan's left, Yang Ziqi opened the envelope. She was stunned when she saw the words on the envelope, and her tears fell to the ground. She opened the door and wanted to say something to Yuan's, at least to apologize to him for her rude attitude. She only saw the figure passing by the corner, as if taking away something in her heart. She felt lost, and gradually slid down from leaning against the door railing to sitting on the ground, looking a little absent-minded. The next day, it was still drizzling. Yuan's took Sun Weiren away from the secret location and went to the security bureau to hand over the task. He obtained 1,200 contribution points, and the information in the card also jumped to 5,200 points. Yuan sat on the steps at the entrance of the security bureau, watching people coming and going, and making plans in his mind bit by bit. "I will go to the place that Mr. Yang mentioned to look for my family later. After returning, I will temporarily put aside these things in S province and wait until I become stronger." "You are here." Yuan Zi heard a very gentle voice, and he knew who she was without looking up. He adjusted his collar and responded to her in a casual manner. "Long time no see. How did you know I was here?" "You were practicing the boxing technique I gave you. When you practice this boxing technique to the end, you can sense people who practice the same boxing technique. Combined with my brother's ability, he told you when you came here 5 days ago." Ji Xueren's eyes sparkled as she looked at Yuan's with joy and undisguised admiration. "Well, your brother really dotes on you, so isn't that mean I'm being monitored by your brother all the time?" "How could that be? My brother is a very reasonable person. Let's go first and chat in the tea house my family owns." "Sure, but it wouldn't be nice if others saw it." "What's the big deal? Let's take the transporter." Transporter. Portal combined vehicle. The principle is very similar, the speed is slower, but much cheaper than the portal. It is a product that our family will soon launch. It's not good to take a car. But Yuan's couldn't resist Ji Xueren's pulling and got into the car. The car was also fully automatic. It arrived at the parking lot in the tea house in a few flashes. After getting out of the car, he went directly into the VIP room. The two chatted for a while about their experiences during this period, as if they wanted to pour out all the longing and unshared stories of the past few months. When Ji Xueren heard about the fierce fighting, even though the protagonist was right in front of her, she couldn't help but get nervous, and her mood changed with the ups and downs of the battle. Yuan's also listened to Ji Xueren talking about this period of time, and looking at the paintings she took out of the scenes of practicing and traveling in various places, Yuan's eyes also gradually filled with longing and yearning for the mountains and rivers. Next time, if you are free, can I accompany you to visit this beautiful land? Ji Xueren blushed and nodded in agreement. She coughed to cover up her gaffe and said, "This is for you." "What is this?" Yuan saw that his device received a huge amount of information. This was the complete training guide for the Ji family boxing, and it also included guidance on training experience. "I pestered my brother for a long time before he agreed to give it to you. After hearing about your story, my brother admired you very much, so he gave you the complete follow-up version of the part he gave you last time, as well as his training guidance." "I'm fine, am I?" Yeah, you're the best." Ji Xueren pulled her hair back, and the rouge on her cheeks seemed to become even redder, all the way to her temples. Her smiling eyes narrowed into a pair of crescents, creating two dimples on her cheeks. Yuan's looked at Ji Xueren's happy expression and laughed too. This was the most relaxing and happiest time for Yuan's in the past few days, without so many worries. Yuan's moved closer to her, and she leaned her head on his shoulder, whispering sweet words to him. She looked at Yuan's, his face turned a little red, and he was actually a little shy. She had never thought about it before. She also heard about what happened in the past few days from her brother. All she could do was to accompany him and let him know that she still existed. No matter how big the world is, I will always wait. Chapter 50 Secret. Yuan's is now staying in the residence that Mr. Yang arranged for his family. "Butler Liu, please come to my room." After ending the call, Yuan stood up and looked out the window, remembering what Mr. Yang had told him. Mr. Yang was very thoughtful. All the family members changed their identities, worked in new units, and enjoyed the benefits of working from home. His younger brother also had a private teacher to guide him. Mr. Yang cleverly used the same rhetoric that Yuan Zi used to deceive Grandma Yi Yang's trust, claiming that Yuan Meishuan had entered a secret department to work, and that all of this was a special arrangement for her by the unit. So the family still lives happily. However, what shocked Yuan Zi deeply was that source power inexplicably emerged from his brother and parents' bodies, transforming them all into source warriors. They told Yuan's that they had fainted for unknown reasons when the flood first occurred, and when they woke up, two people who claimed to be from the secret department had brought them here. This sudden change completely overturned the knowledge Yuan's had gained from books over the years, and his family knew nothing about it, which further deepened his confusion. His thoughts could not help but drift back to the hint from his master. He clearly remembered the day when he handed the blue bottle to his master. His master had said to him, "Have you ever thought that your parents, sister and brother could all become warriors?" These changes in the family seemed to be closely related to Elder Yang and the master, and although they did not explain in detail, perhaps some useful information can be obtained from the housekeeper. "Master Yuan, you have something to talk to me about." Yuan Zi turned around, his face looking extremely solemn. He asked in a deep voice, "Butler Liu, do you think my parents still have hope of becoming awakened warriors at this age?" Butler Liu hesitated for a moment and replied cautiously, "This is hard to be sure. Since Elder Son arranged for your family to come here, their internal energy has not increased. Considering their age, I'm afraid." He deliberately did not finish his words, but stared at Yuan's expression, trying to get some clues from it. However, Yuan Zi was extremely calm, with no emotion on his face, and even revealed a kind of majesty that was very inconsistent with his age. This made Butler Liu feel very difficult, as he could not read any useful information from the face of this new master. "I understand, but you still have to make some arrangements and purchase some equipment. Try your best. Besides, my brother needs it too." "Clear. I understand, Butler Liu. Thank you for your hard work." Yuan Zi's voice was filled with an unquestionable dignity. "Take these source crystals for now and use them to purchase equipment and for daily expenses. If they are not enough, feel free to contact me. If there are any leftovers, you can handle them yourself." Butler Liu was well informed. Although he had never worked for any of the top wealthy families, he was still a little shocked to see him easily take out the mountain of source crystals. This was worth at least 100 million, far more than the average rich man. Yuan Zi turned his gaze to the window and said calmly, "Mr. Sun should have explained your responsibilities to you. I hope you can do your job with all your heart and don't let me down." He looked at Yuan Zi's young profile and took a breath. He felt the weight of Yuan Zi's words. Although the new master was young, he had a maturity and majesty beyond his age. He did not dare to be negligent in the slightest and quickly agreed respectfully. This new owner gave sufficient benefits, punished people in a timely manner, and was young and promising. Butler Lu put away the last trace of neglect in his heart and dared not underestimate the young new master in front of him anymore. Okay, you go do your business. After Butler Lu left the house, Yuan's fell into deep thought again. It seemed that Butler Lu was not aware of the truth. He vaguely remembered that his master repeatedly emphasized before the class assessment that the amulet had no side effect of overdrawing potential. Yuan's asked Astra to retrieve all available information about the source power potion, scrolling through it rapidly, looking for research data related to side effects. What surprised Yuanzi was that, despite the fact that many scholars have devoted themselves to the study of source power and source power potions, there is not a single paper in the vast literature that has explored this in depth. The only paper only briefly mentioned the unexplained decrease in source power caused by the effect of source power potions. Astra, check the information of this author. Details not available. Why? Astra suddenly projected a little person, the image of a young girl, who directed the information and showed it to Yuan's. This person is from the Ohm Alliance. He only briefly guided the research of source power in China. I am unable to hack into the database of the Ohm Alliance for the time being. Can't I go find them? It's a long way from here. For such a long distance, the cost of the portal is astronomical. The two places didn't even plan to spend so much money to build one. As for the plane, one round trip is enough to destroy a small target. Why do I feel like I'm still poor? That's for sure. Think about the chips that the Li family bought. There were 2.5 small goals. Astra did not forget to mock Yuan's. Mr. Yang left me a lot. You can't withdraw money completely freely. Your access rights are limited according to your level of cultivation. It's been almost 3 weeks. Have you finished calculating the drawings? Yuan scolded Astra like the client. I would have forgotten it if you hadn't told me. Astra stuck out his tongue and looked away. You're making trouble with me. I haven't looked for you in the past 2 days. Where have you been? Surfing the internet, chatting with others online, and I even wrote a novel online, but no one appreciated it. Astra raised the corner of his mouth, revealing a malicious smile. By the way, I also saw something more important. I saw you flirting with a girl, and you were still shy. Astra also sent a sly grinning emoticon on the screen. There was some embarrassment on Yuan's face, and he slapped him, but how could he hit the virtual 3D image? Astra popped out from the other end of the screen. I'm not kidding you. The drawings have just been revised and sent out. Take a look at the screen. The money on the screen was scrolling and refreshing the numbers rapidly, which deeply attracted Yuan's attention. How is it? Not bad, right? I specially ordered a delay, so they can be shipped one by one, inspected one by one, and the money will be credited to the account one by one. I'll ask them to exchange as much soft source crystals as they can for the payment from the Weapons Manufacturing Bureau and put it in another account. They don't have to worry about the source power issue in the short term. Yuan's didn't say anything, still staring at the screen, and raised his left hand in the direction of Astra. You are awesome. As the pace of change slowed, both accounts settled on a small goal. It's mainly because the Weapons Manufacturing Bureau is very rich. These engineers are simply a bunch of lunatics in their pursuit of researching more powerful weapons. I tell you, this is called understanding human nature. Astra proudly showed off his hard work to Yuan's. You've been surfing and sparring a lot. I think you're going to be a bad person. You don't even know how to grasp human nature. When Yuan's and Astra were chatting and laughing, a message suddenly popped up. According to the statements of the relevant departments, the D-level mission, individual mission, the disappearance case in Province S, has been upgraded to S+ level, a group mission. Please ask Yuanzi to return to the training camp immediately to be interrogated by the relevant personnel. Yuan's frowned, left some messages to the housekeeper, then hurriedly said goodbye to his family and left home. Subscribe to Chinese Novel Audiobook YouTube channel. Chapter 51. This is just the beginning. After Yuan's finished the interrogation, his inner turmoil was still not over. In order to calm his inner anxiety, he plunged into the training room of the Green Assessment Tower. This time, Yuan's was not in a hurry to practice, but instead thought about the essence of a Yuan warrior. Astra, pull up the data on the promotion of the Source Warriors. The promotion from trainee level to awakened level does not rely on training, but on the passive attraction of external source power by the innate source power in the body. The attraction rate is related to each person's talent. When it is enough and recognized by the martial arts hall, it will be directly promoted to awakened level. At the awakening level, you can actively practice and convert the cosmic energy, dark matter, into the energy in your body at a faster speed. The energy is not only reflected in increasing strength and speed, but also in manipulating the energy, such as charging melee energy weapons. Official level. The source power in the body changes for the first time and can exist in multiple forms. This is also called the activation operation of the source power. The use of the source power becomes more diverse and has the possibility of long-distance operation. Quote. Yuan's closed his eyes and concentrated, feeling the activation of the source power in his body and every tiny fluctuation. Astra, I'm here. I need more information on source force activation. As Astra responded, a huge amount of information slowly flowed into Yuan's mind. He entered the learning state of flow, and with the help of the power of the gene chip, the speed of his brain reached an unprecedented level. Yuan's gradually understood the meaning of activating source power, which is also preparation for the transformation of life level. During this preparation process, the source power will become flexible and changeable, and even resonate with the external environment. The unique source power in his body becomes a bridge between the inside and the outside, closely connecting himself with the outside world. He felt the activated source of power in his body. It seemed to have endless possibilities. Sometimes it dispersed and appeared as a gaseous ethereal substance, sometimes it condensed into an everyday liquid state, or further became a solid state. But according to scientists, research, it is said that matter has several special basic states of matter, such as plasma state, Bose-Einstein condensate state and fermion condensate state. These theoretical studies inspired Yuanzi's endless imagination. He boldly imagined that if the activation of source power was pushed to the extreme, would it be possible to touch these special states of matter? After all, as one of the most mysterious substances in the universe, dark matter has unfathomable properties. As a manifestation of dark matter, source force should naturally have infinite possibilities. However, Yuanzi also knew that it was too early to think about this. After all, neither theoretical knowledge nor source power foundation was enough to support him to do such a groundbreaking practice. You can train with pressure. What do you mean? Thank goodness I wrote it down for you. Astra told Yuanzi the instructions at the door. You spent 2,000 contribution points to enter the third floor training room. There is a new function, which is to increase the concentration of gaseous source power in the air and improve training efficiency. But if it cannot be absorbed in time, the source power will be absorbed by the assessment tower itself, so the concentration of the source power must be adjusted carefully. Under standard atmospheric pressure, the source force mixes with the air in a way that is imperceptible to the human eye. But when its concentration increases to a certain level, it will significantly improve the efficiency of practice. You can analyze the data from the gene chip, so you can help me make adjustments while I am practicing. You're right. In the 20 days before the second quarterly assessment results were released, Yuanzi was determined to go all out. He wanted to sprint from the first level of the official grade to a higher level to test his achievements in recent days. Yuanzi gradually abandoned the distracting thoughts in his mind and made his mind clear and pure. As time went by, he gradually entered a deeper state of flow, concentration, meditation. In this state, the efficiency of absorbing source power will be higher. Astra projected her own virtual image and flew it in the air. She stared at Yuanzi carefully with gentle eyes, trying to understand every emotion in his heart. In the past few months with Yuanzi, she felt like she had become Yuanzi's shadow. Not only did she accurately grasp and analyze the data of every part of his body, she was also trying to understand those human emotions that were strange and fascinating to her. She deeply felt that Yuanzi's heart exuded an invisible and powerful force, which attracted the people around him like a magnet. They were closely connected, supporting each other and facing various challenges together. The emotional bond between them was stronger than steel. He infected so many people around him, and others also deeply infected him. In response to each other, everyone seemed to be lifting him up, and he was also lifting everyone up. Even Astra himself, the AI that once only provided help mechanically according to the program's settings, now gradually developed the urge to actively help him. This emergence of human emotions was a completely new experience for Astra, opening a door to the world of human emotions for her. Astra laid out before her eyes all the events that had occurred during this time, as well as those events that her creator had inputted, and tried to observe and analyze them from a human perspective. The hidden side effects of the source potion, the secrets of becoming a source warrior, the human experiments of the Li family's C virus, the virus invasion crisis of the B03 nuclear power plant, the confusing disappearance case in Province S, the deep secrets of the mechanical city, the ulterior motives of the Ghost Plague organization, the true intentions of the old man in white robes, and the complex forces involved behind the martial arts hall. And who were the two shadowy figures that Yuanzi encountered? Why did they let Yuanzi escape? As well as the problems of Yuanzi itself, the mysterious reversal of source power, and the increase in source power brought by the breathing method, are all a mystery. On the list of missing persons, the names of Sun Wanwen, Hekan, Yi Yang and others were clearly visible. And Mr. Yang had become a victim of this dispute. Behind these complicated events, the ghost epidemic, the martial arts hall, the four major families, and the organization behind Yang's granddaughter are intertwined to form a huge network. Quote, "These missing cases are a bit strange. Judging from their behavior patterns, they don't seem to be the same group of people. Yi Yang was definitely kidnapped by the Li family to study the C virus, and Li Haisheng went back to solve this problem. For the other missing cases, those who were released were all experiments related to spirituality. As for those who were not released, it can be inferred that they are basically dead. It seems that three intertwined forces are weaving the chaos of the current missing persons case. The Kong family is relatively stable at the moment. In Li Haisheng's profile, the Kong family is the only family that refused to participate in the incident that framed Li Haisheng. They said they just wanted to run their own business. Astra suddenly sighed. Under such a great temptation, an old businessman who values profit and gain can actually maintain such composure. Moreover, the previous patriarchs of the Li, Ji, and Zhang families all disappeared or died due to some accidents. Only the patriarch of the Kong family is still the old patriarch, and his position is very stable. Some public information about the Kong family immediately appeared on the screen, especially the information about the head of the family, several points of which made Astra feel very impressed. Kong Renhui, who was born in 2025, is now 113 years old. He is one of the earliest humans to surpass the Nirvana level and has repelled countless super-large beast waves. He refused the title of five-star general, and led his family to delve deeply into the economic field and become a business giant. Soon, Astra found another piece of news. Recently, it was learned that the well-known business family, the Kong family, announced that it would establish a global free trade market in the emerging machinery city B03. In response to this move, Kong family spokesman Kong Fengchuan said, "After the catastrophe, global bulk trade was interrupted for nearly 70 years. We hope to inject new vitality into global trade and promote economic recovery and growth in various regions by establishing this market in B03 city. This move is aimed at coping with the plight of severe global trade obstruction after the Source Beast War, and actively promoting global economic recovery and reconstruction." Kong's move is seen as an important contribution to the global market, and is expected to provide countries with a broader and more convenient trade platform, helping to reshape and develop the global economic and trade pattern. After sorting out this complex and confusing information, Astra took a deep breath. She seemed to have touched the edge of human emotions and artificial intelligence. She wanted to stay with Yuan's forever and face it together with him. Chapter 52: The Nature of Knowledge. The second quarter assessment is over, and nearly 8% of the students were sent back on the grounds of unsatisfactory independent learning ability. The remaining students will go to a transparent assessment tower in the training camp for a 3-month assessment training. My strength is increasing so fast. I'm already an official 9th level Source Warrior. Yuan's talked to Astra in his mind. But we also wasted a lot of Source Crystals last time. That's because you ignored the bottleneck of the official level promotion to the body tempering level in the last few days. Then I can't do anything about it. The information on Source Warrior training is basically top secret. Your master didn't give me much information, so I have to rely on self-study. Next time, take me to the library of the training camp and see if I can learn something. Isn't it time? In front of us, a magnificent tower of knowledge stands quietly in the center of the training camp, like a giant of wisdom standing firm in the torrent of time. In Yuan's eyes, this giant is no longer a physical building, but a towering structure without boundaries, beyond physical limits, switching between virtual and reality, constantly blending between the present and the future, and wandering back and forth. The giant is connected to the galaxy, and each of its floors symbolizes a different field of knowledge, from natural science to future science. The giant is not a static building, but a living organism that is constantly changing and growing. New fields of knowledge and research results are like new floors, constantly adding bricks and tiles to the top of the tower, pushing the giant to extend to higher positions. What did you see? The sudden question interrupted Yuan's viewing. A virtual figure appeared in front of Yuan's and became clearer and clearer as it walked towards Yuan's. This virtual image ignored the other students' exclamations. A network of circuits gradually extended from the soles of his feet, instantly instilling junk information that was difficult for the brain to process quickly into everyone, causing their expressions to become dull. Only when Yuan's activated his flow ability passively, filtering out a large amount of invalid information, his expression remained calm. What an amazing ability. The virtual image clapped its hands excitedly. I finally encountered it. Hello, Yuan's. I am Ming-Tu, the intelligent system of this assessment tower. Perhaps you have noticed that everyone who enters this place for the first time will witness a unique scene presented by the tower. This is not accidental, but the embodiment of their understanding of knowledge in their hearts. It's been more than 10 years since I woke up, and this is the first time I've been affected by a human's mental power. The amazing thing is that I can actually see the embodiment of your mind. What do you mean? Wow, I wish I could learn so much knowledge. Astra sighed in Yuan's mind before Yuan's asked a question, interrupting him. Ming-Tu frowned slightly, as if he had sensed something. Sir, the artificial intelligence in you is more advanced than mine. But it is still a juvenile AI and still needs a lot of learning. It is most appropriate for you to come here. Can you sense me? Since everyone around him was caught in this stagnation, Astra no longer concealed his presence and projected his image. Yes, although you are more advanced than me, you have learned too little. In our world, you are still just a child, so I can sense your presence. Bah, you are the child. Astra crossed his arms across his chest in dissatisfaction, and then ended the projection. It seems that your AI did not feed her too much data during the development stage. The developers probably want you to grow with her. Ming-Tu looked at Yuan's with appreciation and grabbed Astra from where she disappeared. Here, you only need a consciousness to go to any knowledge field you want. I won't bother you anymore. Please come in and study slowly. Humph, just a rookie. Ming-Tu, who was wearing a tuxedo, did not show any anger. Instead, he bowed to Yuanzi and Astra like a gentleman, then turned around and walked calmly into the assessment tower, gradually blending into the assessment tower. As the knowledge field he activated gradually dissipated, the other new students next to the assessment tower gradually regained consciousness. But they could still vaguely feel that the virtual character was talking to Yuanzi, and there was a little more awe in their eyes when they looked at him. Yuanzi didn't care much about these looks. He closed his eyes and entered the tower through the stream of consciousness. He felt like he had broken through the boundaries of time and space and came to an independent network composed of data streams like the pulsation of blood vessels. He opened his eyes and was immediately shocked by the scene before him. Every wall in the tower was precisely compiled with data and information, and a dense network of light connected these walls. Yuan's reached out his hand to touch them. These information nodes and networks seemed to have life. They jumped and flashed at his fingertips, transmitting all kinds of knowledge. The information contained in these knowledge was instantly stored in his brain. Here even a fool can be forced to become a well-educated professor. Yuanzi felt this advanced technology, as if he was suddenly hit by a powerful impact, and stood still. So, no wonder we have to eliminate those who can't learn independently. These people are destined to not have a very high learning ability ceiling. Ha, this is my home court. Astra began to think about how to hack into this system and gain access to this database of massive knowledge. But who would have thought that Ming-Tu suddenly appeared and pulled Astra out of the virtual space? Astra was like a small toy in his hand, looking very angry. You are still too young. Just behave yourself here. I am not like those old systems in other assessment towers. Don't underestimate me. Ming-Tu kicked Astra's butt, and she acted like a dog eating shit next to Yuan's, causing Yuan's to cover his mouth and laugh. What are you laughing at? You, Ming-Tu, are just a fake gentleman. Astra patted his clothes and suddenly found something very interesting. I can actually materialize here. Not only can virtual characters be materialized here, but all knowledge, even extremely abstract mathematics, can be materialized. No matter how difficult something is to understand, you can find examples here. You mentioned mental power just now, and you said it was human mental power. What does that mean? Ming-Tu raised his head, then lowered his head to look at Yuan's, feeling a little conflicted. It's not right to say this. Don't say it if you don't want to. Yuan's rolled his eyes at Astra and told her to be quiet. You should also understand that these assessment towers are not actually products of the blue planet. They were all excavated from some alien ruins. Therefore, during the Great Cataclysm, human technology made rapid progress and resolved the First Origin Beast War. My database contains very limited information about the alien civilization one belonged to. My main mission is to store and impart knowledge, but the historical records of my origin civilization have been almost completely erased, leaving only some theoretical information. Yuan's frowned and squinted at Ming-Tu. What about mental power? If my data tells me that your mental power is not only powerful and pure, but can also act on actual objects. So what? In this way, you will be able to release your mental power and quickly absorb the knowledge I have stored. Because knowledge is actually a form of mental power. By studying here, people's mental power will be trained and improved, becoming more cohesive and powerful. Ming-Tu looked at Yuan's thoughtful expression and felt the infinite potential in his body. First, learn the knowledge related to biology, the field of neuroscience. Astra gave Yuan's a hint. Yuan's nodded, and these silk threads carrying knowledge wrapped around him and wrapped him up. Chapter 53 Tempering Mental Strength. Yuan sat cross-legged and used the secret method taught by Zhang Zisheng to release his mental power combined with the activated source power. Yuan's also used gene chips to modify the way the gene lock ability, Mind Flow, was used, attaching the ability of Mind Flow to every mental power released, trying to speed up the absorption and understanding of knowledge. The network threads wrapped around Yuan's, as if they had found prey, all gathered around Yuan's body and connected one by one with his outward mental power. Some of the threads even arrived too late and had no corresponding mental power interfaces, and they began to become tangled and entangled, as if they were about to start a fight. Ming-Tu was incredulous. There had never been such a situation in his database, nor had he calculated such a situation. He looked at Yuan's carefully, peeling off the thread of knowledge bit by bit, so that it would match the thread of Yuan's mental power. But at this time, a change occurred that surprised Ming-Tu even more. The mental power released by Yuan's actually changed in form. He saw that the source power in Yuan's spiritual power was interfering with the development of cells. The stem cells underwent a radical change. They seemed to be given a new life and gradually transformed into precious, neural stem cells. These neural stem cells are like newborn seeds, taking root and sprouting in Yuan's body, and then differentiating into neural precursor cells, of various shapes and cell groups with unique functions. This process is like a grand symphony, with each cell playing its own music precisely according to the direction of the source force. As time goes by, mature neurons gradually emerge, extending their slender axons and dendrites, dancing in the spiritual world of Yuan's like countless tentacles. These neurons are connected to each other through dendrites, forming a complex and orderly neural network. They are like the guardians of knowledge, constantly drawing wisdom from the test tower. Each neuron is like a smart thread of knowledge, closely connecting the source with the vast ocean of knowledge. Ming-Tu vaguely saw a blurry outline behind Yuan's. It was made up of countless brain waves that were difficult to distinguish with the naked eye. This outline maintained the same posture and body shape as Yuan's, as if it was his spiritual projection, a mysterious existence of a second self. Ming-Tu also noticed the glittering gene chip in Yuan's hand. It was running at full capacity, constantly analyzing and encoding neurons, and carefully carving Yuan's spiritual world. The circuits of the chip extend from Yuan's brain and are closely connected to the newly formed nerve tissue. They are like lifelines, firmly binding Yuan's to this mysterious world. Through these lines, Yuan's can sense every fluctuation of knowledge in the assessment tower and transform it into nourishment for his own spiritual power. Astra on the side also fell into a rare silence. She was concentrating on receiving the massive amount of data absorbed by Yuan's. The influx of a large amount of information made her virtual face flush, as if she was unable to breathe due to excessive effort. In this flood of information, Astra is also growing at an astonishing speed. Her figure gradually transforms from a little girl into a graceful young lady, elegant and powerful. This unprecedented growth rate surprised even Ming-Tu, a knowledgeable AI. What frightened him was that Astra and Yuan's had the same will, and their spiritual fusion degree soared from 22% to 64% before gradually stabilizing. In this process, their bond became closer and closer, moving towards inseparability. After an unknown amount of time, Yuan's was finally awakened by a strong feeling of hunger. It seemed that his body had reached its limit. His eyes, which had just opened, lost their luster and were covered with a thick turbidity. He stared at his hands quietly, as if only skin was left tightly wrapped around fragile skeletons. The lines on his palms were like an old, wrinkled map, and his fingers were slender and dry, like withered branches in winter. Yuan's clenched his fists and could clearly see the bones moving suddenly under his skin. He stood up and moved around, feeling that every cell in his body was screaming in pain, craving for nutrition. Although his body was exhausted, Yuan's spirit was unusually full. He stretched out his arms and lay back. The moment he landed, he used his mental power, which had almost condensed into substance, to lift himself up steadily. Ming-Tu slowly appeared at this time and looked at him helplessly. "You are really a lunatic. You have to push yourself to the limit before you stop. How long has it been now?" Yuan's breath was long and lingering, like an old wise man. "It's been 102 days, and you have absorbed nearly half of my knowledge." Ming-Tu also saw Yuan's worry. "The assessment is over, and I have transmitted the results to the Flesh and Blood Tower. In order to protect your vital signs, I drove everyone away and sealed the entrance. The space here is equipped with a basic life support device called a micro-bioreactor to keep Yuan's alive. It uses nanotechnology and bioengineering to interact directly with cells to provide necessary energy and oxygen. They can also intelligently monitor the state of the body and adjust inputs and outputs, and can promptly remove waste from the body, allowing Yuan's body to maintain basic operations under extreme conditions. However, despite such an advanced and comprehensive life support system, under Yuan's almost crazy consumption, it finally seemed unable to cope with it and could not keep up with his needs. "Thank you very much." Yuan's paused for a moment, which red assessment tower is the Flesh and Blood Tower. It's the red assessment tower. After hearing Ming-Tu's response, Yuan's immediately asked what to do next, because at this moment Astra had severed her spiritual connection with him and fell into an unfathomable state of sleep. "I'm ready. What you need is there. Just go to the Tower of Flesh and Blood." Yuan stood up, wrapped himself with mental power, manipulated every muscle and bone in his body, and walked out of the assessment tower. The outside of the assessment tower was crowded with people, even many professors and instructors. Because during the last 50 days of Yuan's operation, Ming-Tu expelled all students and closed all channels of consciousness, prohibiting anyone from entering. But when everyone saw Yuan's appearance, they were so shocked that they were speechless, as if a chill instantly ran through their bodies. Yuan's was emaciated, with only skin and bones left. Clothes hung loosely on his thin body, swaying in the wind, like a piece of cloth forgotten on a clothes rack. His cheeks and eye sockets were sunken, and his cheekbones were high, making his eyes look unusually large. However, there was no trace of decadence or confusion in those deep eyes. On the contrary, they were like the brightest stars in the dark night sky, shining with hope. The spiritual power brought by this belief is like a warm current, washing out waves in everyone's hearts. Everyone was shocked by his tenacity and perseverance. Regardless of their status or strength, everyone consciously made way for Yuan's to pass by calmly. Why is he so calm? He seems to be hollowed out. Some people still couldn't help but whisper. Shish, don't say anything. Just follow him and see what he's going to do. So, a group of people began to follow him and saw him step into the majestic red assessment tower. Then, the assessment tower seemed to sense something and suddenly began to expel the students who were submitting assessments in the tower and tightly closed all the entrances. At first, everyone was curious about what was so special about this assessment tower that contained ranking scores. Time passed quietly, and the people who followed gradually left. Only occasionally someone would stop in front of the red assessment tower for a moment, but as time went on, more and more people gathered at the door. Chapter 54, Misty Jungle. Yuan's walked out of the red assessment tower. His body was no longer skinny, but full and energetic. The sunlight shone on his body, tanning the skin on his arms slightly, and one could vaguely see the blue veins swirling up like a long dragon. The crowd around was bustling, and the noisy discussions seemed to be separated from Yuan's by a thin film. Far away from his ears, only the resolute figure in front of him seemed particularly eye-catching, as if it was very close. Little guy, it looks like you're ready. Instructor Clauser patted Yuan's on the shoulder and looked at Yuan's, as if he saw the shadow of his youth. The final annual assessment is coming soon. In more than a month, we will enter the Misty Forest for the annual assessment. Because the communicator could not transmit information before, I am waiting for you here specially. The instructor is thoughtful. No, you are also a hot topic in the training camp now. It is my honor to train such a student. Clauser rarely smiled, and his scar was twisted to one side, sending the assessment information to Yuan's. After the renovation of the Tower of Knowledge and the Red Assessment Tower, the fourth assessment period has been about a month. The assessment method is to survive in the restricted area of the Misty Jungle for a month, no matter what method you use. Got it, Instructor Scar. Yuan-Zi looked down at the information on the bracelet and flipped to the bottom to see a few lines of words left by Instructor Crowther. He looked at Crowther meaningfully, then gave a standard military salute to thank the instructor for his reminder. Yuan walked through the noisy crowd, feeling tired as he walked, and his spirit became increasingly weak. He decided to find a corner to rest. The training camp is such a big place, but there is nothing to do for entertainment. Everyone repeats various trainings day after day. Yuan's really had nowhere to go, so the bathhouse was the only place he could stay for the time being. He pushed open the door of the bathhouse, and a warm and moist steam rushed towards him, as if giving him a gentle hug. Yuan stepped in, feeling the warmth and moisture, eager to wash away his fatigue and anxiety in this private space. The door of the bathhouse slowly closed, isolating the noise and disturbance of the outside world. At this moment, this place became Yuan's safe haven, a place where he could temporarily unload all his burdens and completely relax himself. He stood under the shower, letting the water gently brush over his skin, enjoying this rare tranquility and comfort. After taking a bath, Yuan seemed to be reborn. He returned to the dormitory, lay on the bed, and looked at the spotless white ceiling, with an inexplicable feeling in his heart. Yuan-Zi was actually full of helplessness, because he knew that such an action would undoubtedly attract countless attention in the training camp. Those mysterious masters hiding in the dark might take action against him in advance and try to strangle him in the cradle. However, Yuan firmly believed that the masters they said were just opportunities for him to hone his own strength. What are you thinking about? Rick suddenly popped his head out from behind the bed, and the little fat boy also jumped out. Why didn't you two wait for me to come out? Alas, it's all Scar's fault. Rick said with a bitter face, last time we skipped 2 training classes to wait for you, but he caught us and punished us to do hard training for a long time. I am used to freedom, so I can't stand that kind of restraint. That's right, Scar just lifted our punishment. The little fat boy muttered, touching his cheek which seemed to have become thinner. Look, I've lost weight. Wouldn't it be better if you lost some weight? Yuan smiled and sat on the bed with his legs crossed. Oh, let's not talk about this. Ji Shifeng patted his belly. Look at me, this is what we call healthy. As for you, we all watched the video from the Tower of Knowledge. You were as thin as a ghost, which scared us. What did you do in the assessment tower? The two still remembered that when he walked out of the Tower of Knowledge, he was almost as thin as a skeleton, as if all his flesh and blood had been sucked dry by the tower. They could not imagine how Yuan's had persisted and how much knowledge he had absorbed. For most people, the red assessment tower is just a tool for calculating assessment scores. There were some rumors about it, and a distant legend in the training camp mentioned that it was a mysterious tower that used flesh and blood to make up for the loss of knowledge. But after so many years, only Yuan's actually activated it. However, for people like Yuan's who walked out of the Tower of Knowledge, perhaps that is their real place of trial. After hearing Yuan's talk about his experience, the two nodded thoughtfully and decided to do their best next time they entered the Tower of Knowledge. So what level are you at now? Yuan smiled slightly and rolled up his sleeves, revealing the source power flowing spontaneously on his skin. They seemed to have life, shuttling through his skin, forming a layer of light armor. At least it's a low-level body tempering level, Yuan said confidently. That's good, you are slowly catching up. You know, in the assessment area of the Misty Jungle, it is almost impossible to survive without the body tempering level. Rick finally felt relieved. The little fat man frowned and said, according to the information from my family, the most dangerous place in the Misty Jungle is its swamp. Most students will encounter some extremely powerful source beasts there. As long as we don't get lost, who would go deeper? The assessment is only on the periphery. Yuanzi said thoughtfully, but I am very curious about the source of this fog. Rick and the little fat man looked at each other and saw the confusion in each other's eyes. We don't know much, actually. Rick said frankly, overseas records on China are very limited. The little fat man sighed and could only explain slowly. It turned out that after the Great Cataclysm, there were too many unowned lands filled with powerful source beasts on Blue Star. The Misty Jungle was one of them, and at the core lived an unparalleled beast king, a source beast beyond the Nirvana level. The fog is a semi-liquid, semi-gas substance formed by dense leaves in the jungle blocking most of the sunlight, which makes the fog and source power fully mixed. It can block the perception of source power by conventional means, and many source beasts here have super stealth ability, so it is recognized as one of the burial places for the weak. Even the outer assessment area is extremely dangerous, so it has been the site for new students' year-end assessments for many years. Yuanzi was shocked when he heard this. No wonder everyone said that in the Misty Jungle, only by reaching the body tempering level can one form effective defense on the body and reduce the damage caused by the source beast sneak attack. Including the information revealed by Instructor Clauser, there is still more than a month left, so I have to prepare well. Chapter 55 Swamp. Damn it. Yuan's cursed through gritted teeth. Although Crowther had warned him in advance that his plane had been tampered with, and he had made sufficient preparations, the ruthlessness of these people's actions was still beyond his expectations. However, in this chaos and despair, a ray of hope suddenly appeared. A black box fell into Yuan's hands. Its shell was charred by the raging fire, and some parts were even twisted and deformed due to the high temperature. Despite this, Yuan still firmly believed that the storage chip inside should be intact and contain vital data. He held the black box tightly, feeling its rough surface and cold metal texture. It seemed to be carrying a heavy mission, the weight of which was as heavy as the fate of the entire plane. Yuan's put away the black box and looked around. He was in a muddy swamp, and not far away, the wreckage of the crashed plane was still emitting billowing black smoke and occasional explosions. Disguise mode. Astra fell into a deep sleep, and Yuan's could only manually adjust the mode of the battle suit and the chip. This mode can transform the battle suit in his own skin to give it camouflage ability similar to a chameleon. Yuan's carefully walked around the wreckage of the plane, avoiding the still burning flames. He took a deep breath and tried to stay calm and alert, as any negligence could expose his position. He continued to move forward, and from time to time, fragments and wreckage of the aircraft came into view, and each time his heart tightened. Those familiar seats, dashboards and joysticks, now only in the form of ruins, told a silent song of sorrow. Yuanzi heard a faint cry for help, and he immediately followed the sound. Soon, he found the injured student Raymond on a relatively dry grass. Raymond was lying there, next to a body that had been engulfed by flames and was charred and mutilated. Yuanzi did not pay much attention to Raymond, who was gradually fainting beside him. Instead, he was attracted by the corpse that was already unrecognizable. He squatted down and carefully observed the unrecognizable body. From the uniform, Yuanzi deduced that this was a male crew member who was not a Yuan warrior. This exquisite uniform had been burned to tatters by the flames, but its original outline and color could still be vaguely seen. Yuanzi tore open the torn uniform on the chest and shifted his sight to the chest of the corpse. There, the charred skin cracked like a drought-stricken land, revealing the severely damaged tissue inside. Yuanzi could clearly see that the sternum was broken, and the muscles and blood vessels around the wound showed extreme signs of tearing and burning. The severity of the wound convinced Yuanzi that this was the fatal injury that caused the crew member's death. At the moment of the explosion, the crew member's chest suffered a huge external force impact, causing the sternum to break and the internal organs to shatter. In that case, the possibility of survival is almost zero. Yuanzi's eyes suddenly fixed on the wound on the corpse's neck. There, the charred skin cracked open, revealing deep cuts and red, swollen, and turned out muscle tissue. Yuanzi used some superficial forensic knowledge to make a judgment. Judging from the shape and depth of the wound, it was obviously not caused by an explosion. It seems that this person had already suffered an attack before the explosion. Yuanzi's heart trembled as he realized that this man had already suffered irresistible damage before the explosion. This meant that before the explosion, the crew had been completely controlled, and a Yuan warrior had infiltrated the crew. Yuanzi stood up and expanded his spiritual perception to the limit. Within this limited 10-meter range, he seemed to be integrated with nature and could even sense the faint breathing of flowers and plants. After confirming that there were no other threats around, he turned his attention to the unconscious Raymond again. They didn't have much in common. Yuanzi only knew that he came from an ordinary family in Ji province. Although Raymond fell into a deep coma, his injuries were not too serious, and the skin affected by the explosion had begun to be slowly repaired by the source power. After a brief thought, Yuanzi decided to lend a helping hand. He carefully placed Raymond in a relatively intact escape pod equipped with a life support system. Whether Raymond woke up and escaped on his own or waited for the arrival of search and rescue personnel, this was undoubtedly a better choice. Yuanzi cleverly hid the escape pod in the wreckage of the plane, pretending it was damaged, and then quickly left the area. After all, no one could predict what would happen next. Would the pursuers approach, or would the search and rescue personnel arrive? What's more, this place is in the heart of the foggy jungle, full of dangers. This assessment was supposed to be conducted in the outer area, which was mainly inhabited by high-level body tempering or fusion-level source beasts, with low-level peak-level source beasts occasionally appearing. However, at this moment, the location where Yuanzi is located is a place where Rongtong-level and peak-level source beasts frequently appear, and the types and numbers of source beasts are extremely dense. For the students, if they cannot crack the special abilities of these source beasts in time, their situation will be precarious. Yuanzi had considered flying to escape, but without an anti-gravity device, the energy consumption of flying was astronomical. The muddy ground and shallow water flow made his actions more difficult. Even if Yuanzi chose to move on the tree, it was not foolproof. The harassment from insects and source beasts continued, and one of the tempering-level green worms even caused Yuanzi a lot of trouble. As Jens worked hard to stay hidden and tried to stay away from the danger zone, he suddenly heard the faint sound unique to the battle suit, which indicated that two Zhenbu warriors were approaching his position. The two men communicated throughout the process through the audio inside their suits, and turned on various detection equipment and camouflage systems, acting extremely cautiously. Yuanzi couldn't tell who was the enemy and who was the friend. He could only roughly judge that he was a fusion-level Yuan warrior from the level of his battle suit. Yuanzi could only use the battle suit to camouflage himself, and he also temporarily modified his abilities through the chip, turning the immersive state of flow into a state of suspended animation to evade inspection. When these instruments scanned his body, no alarm was triggered, and the two continued to explore the periphery. However, the shorter one seemed to have noticed something. He glanced at the tree where Yuanzi was hiding, then slowly approached, as if he had sensed something unusual. Just as Yuanzi was about to take action to escape, the Yuan warrior who had been distracted by Yuanzi's direction suddenly returned to his companions. He reacted quickly and successfully avoided fatal injuries. "What is this?" he asked in surprise. "This is a big trouble. Isn't this the extinct swamp horse? How is it possible that such a powerful individual still exists?" Another shorter source warrior was obviously more experienced. He immediately recognized this dangerous creature. At the same time, Yuanzi also ended his suspended state. He also recognized this swamp spirit horse and felt secretly delighted. It seemed that he could find a chance to escape from here. This is a source beast evolved from a wild horse, the swamp spirit horse. Its entire body is covered with a layer of camouflaged scales, as if it were cast from mud. The most eye-catching thing is the gem called Eye of True Vision, embedded in the middle of its forehead. It emits a faint blue light, as if it can see through all the disguises and deceptions in the world. The true eye contains a unique biological crystal that is completely different from ordinary visual organs. The true eye can capture a wider range of light spectra, including ultraviolet, infrared and weak light signals that are often ignored by the naked eye. When creatures or objects use the ability to change color for camouflage, their spectral characteristics will undergo subtle changes. These changes are imperceptible to ordinary creatures, but cannot escape the sharp insight of the eye of true seeing. Because of the unique ability of the true vision eye, humans have always been eager to obtain them and use them as the core components of high-end anti-stealth equipment. Some source warriors even choose to use the true vision eye of the powerful rotten swamp spirit horse to replace their own eyes in order to pursue a sharper vision. This is also the main reason why the rotten swamp spirit horses are gradually becoming extinct. Now it seems that there are still a small number of rotten swamp spirit horses quietly surviving in this misty jungle. This top-level swamp spirit horse, with dark green light flashing all over its body, roared as it rushed towards the two source warriors. One of the source warriors was tall and mighty, holding a lightning spear. He walked steadily, fearlessly facing the fierce attack of the rotten swamp spirit horse, and engaged in a fierce fight with it. The other source warrior had a slender figure, holding two guns in his hands. He moved nimbly around the rotten swamp spirit horse, shooting continuously, creating space for his teammates, trying to find an opportunity to win. The rotten swamp spirit horse let out a ferocious roar, stomped the ground with its front hooves, and swung its tail like a steel whip, launching fierce attacks on the two source warriors. The source power of the spears and the double guns intertwined and collided in the air, bursting out with brilliant light and setting off waves of violent storm-like shock waves. However, although the rotten swamp spirit horse was of a higher level, its strength and speed were suppressed and it could not be fully exerted due to the tacit cooperation of the two source warriors. Gradually, it fell into a disadvantage. However, the swamp horse, which lacked long-range means, gradually fell into a disadvantage. Although it was at a higher level than them, its strength and speed were suppressed and could not be fully utilized. Soon, the rotten swamp spirit horse was already wounded in many places, and the dark green light became increasingly dim. Although the two source warriors were also sweating and panting, their eyes became more determined. They stared at the rotten swamp spirit horse, exchanging tacit glances with each other, obviously preparing for the final fatal blow. At this moment, the rotten swamp spirit horse suddenly turned its body around, trying to use its tail to sweep away both source warriors to give itself a chance to escape. How could the two source warriors let it go so easily? They launched their attacks almost at the same time, the source power of their spears and double guns intertwined to form a brilliant beam of light, which knocked the rotten swamp spirit horse heavily down into the jungle. However, a bright light shone from the body of the swamp spirit horse, forcing them to stop attacking it. Yuanzi knew that this was a rare special ability of a high-level swamp spirit horse. A very small number of swamp spirit horses had a special enzyme in their scales that could quickly convert rotten things into energy and then into source power. And the place where they knocked it down just now was all filled with this humus. Run! The sturdy guy saw what happened and pulled his teammates, rushing to the outside, trying to create space. How could the swamp spirit horse let them go? The two men and the beast fought again. The swamp spirit horse no longer dodges the attacks of the source power bullets at this moment, and the places that are hit will be quickly repaired by the source power. This wanton squandering also brought a huge burden to it, and the recovery speed gradually decreased. At the same time, the source power of the two source warriors was also consumed greatly. They even lowered their masks and directly breathed the source power in the mist to replenish their losses. For a time, the two sides fell into a stalemate. Suddenly, a huge crocodile head jumped out of the swamp where the swamp horse was and bit half of its body. The surrounding trees were all cut down in the death roll of the source beast, and the rotten land was exposed to the setting sun. The rotten swamp spirit horse struggled with all its might, and the gem on its head shone brighter and brighter, but the cracks on it became more and more obvious. However, all this was in vain, and it could only be swallowed bit by bit. As the crocodile swallowed them all, it moved its gaze back and forth between the two of them with an unsatisfied look. The priceless gem also shattered during the bite, emitting a strong light. This light instantly submerged the two Yuan warriors and Yuanzi on the tree, and Yuanzi's disguise was also peeled off bit by bit. Oh no! This is the dying light that can break through all disguises. Subscribe to Chinese Novel Audiobook YouTube channel. Chapter 56, The Overlord of the Quagmire. The neighing of the swamp spirit horse echoed in the swamp for a long time. Yuanzi squatted on a thick branch, looking at the two Yuan warriors below with an awkward expression. They were also obviously stunned by this sudden situation, but they quickly reacted and cautiously wandered between Yuanzi and the crocodile. Ahem. Yuanzi coughed twice and quickly sent some information about the crocodile source beast to the two of them. Let's deal with this crocodile first. It's very strong. Lu Shuiyan and Dai Wei looked at each other and silently accepted the information. Their faces gradually became solemn, and they had obviously realized how difficult this source beast was. This behemoth not only had an indestructible defense, but also possessed a variety of deadly abilities. If you were not careful, you might fall into an irretrievable situation. The two quickly jumped onto the giant tree where Yuanzi was, and checked the information they received, their faces becoming more and more serious. Even though they were well informed, they had to admit that this was an extremely rare and difficult to deal with source beast. Dai Wei frowned. Although he was dissatisfied, he decided to join forces with Yuanzi to deal with this crisis. Yuanzi also gladly accepted their invitation to form a team. After all, at this dangerous moment, one more person means one more strength. So, the three of them fought side by side to face this powerful crocodile beast together. The crocodile suddenly jumped out of the swamp again. Its huge head was like a mountain peak, biting the thickest tree fiercely. The last tree was broken into pieces under its terrifying bite force. The three were forced to land on the ground. Dai Wei still looked at Yuanzi with suspicion, obviously holding a grudge against him. Lu Shuiyan noticed this atmosphere of distrust, and he glared at Dai Wei, signaling him to put aside his prejudice and focus on dealing with the crisis at hand. Although Dai Wei was unwilling, he could only turn his attention back to Crocodile Tyrant. Lu Shuiyan acted as the vanguard, fighting Crocodile Tyrant head-on with all his strength. This source beast was much stronger than the rotten swamp spirit horse he had encountered before, which made him feel more pressured. Dai Wei tried his best to distract Crocodile Tyrant's attention. However, his energy bullets were like a drop in the ocean. Not only did they not cause any harm to Crocodile Tyrant, but they were absorbed by Crocodile Tyrant and converted into his own energy supply. Its adaptive armor is a mechanical device composed of countless microorganisms. Each of these micro-machines is cleverly integrated with energy converters and sensors. This allows the barrier to not only rebound attacks, but also absorb, store, and release source power at the right time. Yuanzi calmly analyzed Crocodile King's characteristics in the rear. He did not directly participate in the battle, but acted as a think tank. Use a source of force that vibrates at a specific frequency to disrupt the working frequency of these biological structures, thereby disintegrating its adaptive armor. After receiving the frequency value, the two immediately switched the activation method of the source power. The effect was very significant, and their attacks changed significantly. The source power that was originally absorbed seemed to have found a breakthrough, directly penetrating the Crocodile Tyrant's defense and hitting its body hard. Before reaching the extraordinary level, the flesh of any creature is relatively fragile and cannot withstand too many physical attacks. Crocodile Tyrant is no exception. It roared in pain under the fierce attack of the two. When the attack hits its weak points and vital points, it can ignore the level difference and cause severe damage to it. After the Crocodile Tyrant's defense was broken, facing the two Rongtong-level source warriors, he also gave up the idea of direct combat. After leaving a deep hole on the ground, his figure flashed and disappeared into the vast swamp. Drilling the ground is just interference. This is a multi-spectrum stealth capability. The special biological cells in the body can emit and absorb multiple spectrums of light and electromagnetic waves, allowing it to remain invisible under different detection methods. However, the consumption is huge and it cannot be maintained for a long time. Dai Wei, you need to shrink the formation and protect Yuanzi. At the same time, you must also be careful to prevent surprise attacks and ensure that we can support each other in time. Lu Shuiyan gave orders to Dai Wei while vigilantly observing his surroundings. Upon hearing this, Dai Wei immediately pointed his gun upwards, stuck close to Yuanzi, and moved carefully in circles to ensure the safety of both of them. At this moment, the ground suddenly trembled slightly. Just as Yuanzi and Dai Wei were about to jump up to avoid it, the giant mouth had already covered their feet at lightning speed. At this critical moment, Lu Shuiyan stepped forward. He rushed over and used his spear to hold the crocodile's mouth tightly, buying precious time for Yuanzi and Dai Wei to escape. After the two successfully escaped, he took advantage of the situation to cut several deep wounds in Crocodile King's mouth, but the huge bite force caused the weapon to be severely damaged and could no longer be used. At this time, Dai Hui's source power bullets poured down like a rainstorm, accurately aiming at Crocodile Tyrant's mouth, which had not yet closed. However, Yuanzi keenly discovered that several bullets with insufficient lethality were actually shot at non-vital parts of his body. Yuanzi, who was in the flow state, calmly slowed down the speed of the bullets and activated the defensive force field given to him by Li Haisheng. He easily bounced back the bullets and resolved this sudden crisis. What are you doing? Are you fighting among yourselves? Lu Shuiyan angrily rushed to Dai Wei and asked, if it weren't for this little brother's help, would we be able to defeat Crocodile Tyrant? I'm sorry, the battle lasted too long, and I made some mistakes in controlling my energy. Dai Wei explained coldly, without a trace of guilt. I won't do it again next time. Let's not talk about this for now. Yuanzi didn't care about their fight at this time, it hid in the swamp again. Its biological cells are accumulating electromagnetic energy. It's about to use its ultimate move. Astra finally woke up and quickly analyzed the battle situation. She used broadband detection equipment and high-precision algorithms to locate it and helped Yuanzi restore his camouflage. This kind of stealth combined with electromagnetic guns requires huge source of power to support it, and the user will definitely enter a weak state after using it. Turn on the electromagnetic shielding to maximum. We'll be there in 3 seconds. Yuanzi reminded them, but he chose to move forward. Don't go, it's dangerous. Yuanzi ignored Lu Shuiyan's dissuasion. He knew that only by completely killing the Crocodile King could he eliminate his worries. Otherwise, once he was out of the protection of these two Rongtong-level masters, he would become the prey of the Crocodile King in a weak state. With a roar, the electromagnetic cannon finally fired. Yuanzi found that the special cells in the Crocodile King's body were converting the source power into electromagnetic waves, continuously ejecting plasma-charged particle streams. This energy gathered into a terrifying beam of light, and as the Crocodile King shook his head, it shot out in all directions. The two people on the ground kept dodging the attack of electromagnetic pulses. This intensity of electromagnetic interference even caused a certain degree of disorder in their body functions. Even a Rongtong-level strongman could hardly resist the full-force attack of the peak level. Yuanzi suddenly had an idea, and he once again released his mental power, cleverly simulating the cells in Crocodile Tyrant's body, forming an electric field and a magnetic field. This action allowed the brain waves between his neurons to be converted into an electromagnetic field, which invisibly built a solid barrier to protect his body tightly. After Astra accurately corrected the data and confirmed that it was correct, Yuanzi resolutely stepped into the huge mouth of the crocodile. The crocodile glared at him with one eye, and the muscles on his face twisted into a mocking expression, as if mocking this weak ant who overestimated his own capabilities. Is he crazy? Lu Shuiyan and Dai Wei tried their best to resist the attack of the electromagnetic pulse, while watching in amazement as Yuanzi walked step by step into the huge mouth of the crocodile. Lu Shuiyan used those instruments that were about to be scrapped to observe Yuanzi. He was surprised to find that the electromagnetic field attached to his body was constantly changing the movement trajectory of particles, avoiding all high-energy ion beams, and leaving colorful ribbons like the aurora on his body, as if awarding him a medal. The two were so shocked that they even forgot about the blood oozing from the corners of their mouths. Suddenly, the electromagnetic pulse stopped abruptly. Crocodile King rolled over, exposing his belly, twisting his huge body in pain. Then, the soft belly began to bulge a little bit, just like a needle gradually bulging and piercing through linen. Yuanzi rushed out of Crocodile Tyrant's body, covered in blood. He looked at the two people who were shocked and said calmly, "Why don't you finish him off?" The two men woke up as if from a dream, and immediately joined forces to completely destroy Crocodile King's chance of survival. "Little brother, I finally understand why the master values you so much." Lu Shuiyan leaned on the wooden stool next to him, panting and raising his finger to praise Yuanzi. "What on earth is?" Dai Wei pointed his gun at Yuanzi and interrupted his question. "Sorry, this is not what you should ask. We still have to take you back." "Okay, then I'll go meet the master who is so interested in me." Yuanzi was not frightened by his actions. Instead, he calmly sat on the wooden stake next to him. "Dai Wei, put down the gun." Lu Shuiyan walked between the two men and pressed down the arm of Dai Wei holding the gun. "Brother Yuanzi, you have done us a favor. Is this how I taught you to treat your benefactor?" "But," the Lord said. "What did you say? We didn't see Yuanzi this time." Lu Shuiyan looked unhappy and glared at him. "Think about it. During the battle, you attacked Yuanzi. Did he care about you? People should still have some conscience. If we let the little brother go this time, we will be even." "No, I want to." Seeing that Dai Wei was so stubborn, Lu Shuiyan knocked him out and carried him on his shoulders. Before Lu Shuiyan left, he gave Yuanzi a meaningful look and said, "Little brother, when we meet again in the future, I'm afraid we will have a fierce battle, and we will definitely not show any mercy then." Clear. The two quickly disappeared from Yuanzi's sight. He finally breathed a sigh of relief and began to communicate with Astra. Astra's timely awakening was undoubtedly a great help to Yuanzi. Otherwise, he would not have dared to take the huge risk and bravely enter Crocodile King's body under the attack of the electromagnetic cannon. Astra also revealed to Yuanzi that the knowledge they absorbed together last time not only confused Yuanzi, but also she herself could not fully understand it. The knowledge was too obscure and far beyond the scope of the human knowledge system, in just storing it made her fall into a deep sleep. Yuanzi's newly extended second nervous system also mainly stored this knowledge. Although he was curious about this knowledge, now was not the time to study it in depth. Looking at the corpse of the source beast in front of him, Yuanzi felt a little sorry for these precious materials, but time was running out and he could not carefully cut and separate this huge creature. He could only take away the source crystal in a hurry. Yuanzi didn't look back and quickly fled from the dangerous area. Chapter 57 Reunion. After Astra woke up, she helped Yuanzi to cleverly avoid many unnecessary troubles. After that, Yuanzi never encountered any opponents with completely unequal strength, and soon he could clearly see the boundary line of the assessment area. Yuanzi was not unfamiliar with this area. He remembered that in the important assessment of the top class, they simulated the surrounding environment of the misty jungle, but the level of the source beast at that time was deliberately lowered. Even so, the experience remains unforgettable for him. He walked to the place where he had fought fiercely with the hydraulic tentacle monster in the virtual examination space. Every detail of that duel with candidate number 0279 was deeply imprinted in his memory, as clear as if it had just happened. This was originally the meeting place he had agreed with Rick and Ji Shifeng. However, it now seemed that they had left early for some reason. Yuanzi looked around and couldn't help feeling a little lost and lonely, but he soon noticed something strange about his surroundings. Yuanzi held up the branch that was still barely connected to the trunk, and looked forward. Many branches were broken, and there were even some scattered clothing fibers hanging on them. He squatted down and searched the ground. There were some messy footprints, mixed with the reflection of metal fragments. Astra also quickly analyzed the characteristics of these footprints, which coincided with Yuan's judgment. Among them are the footprints of Rick and Ji Shifeng. The bloody footprints showed that many people were injured. Their blood not only stained the ground red, but also rubbed on the branches nearby, outlining a thrilling picture. Yuan's carefully observed the distance and stride between the footprints, trying to read more information from them. These subtle clues allowed him to infer their walking speed at the time. It was a hurried, panicked pace, as if they were fleeing from some invisible terror. Start path analysis. The subjects are Rick and Ji Shifeng. Astra responded immediately and quickly analyzed the movement tracks of the two of them. Yuan's found that for some reason, the two of them had a lot of traces of running back and forth. He followed Astra's instructions, rushed all the way, and finally stopped on a steep cliff. On the edge of the cliff, several eye-catching bloody handprints came into view. It was obvious that they had tried every possible means to enter the cave on the cliff. Yuanzi didn't care about his remaining energy at this time, and flew directly to the cave entrance. Before he could stand firm, he felt a chill on the back of his head. It's me. I'm Yuanzi. Yuan's clearly felt the coolness disappearing from the side of his head, and heard a familiar sigh. He turned around and saw Ji Shifeng walking out of the shadows. The two walked into the cave together. Inside the cave, Rick was squatting anxiously beside several students lying on the ground, his face full of worry. These students were pale, with their eyes tightly closed, as if they were trapped in endless darkness. Their breathing was weak and rapid, as if every breath was a brush with death. Yuan's didn't say much, and quickly gave Astra instructions for diagnosis and treatment. With the help of some simple equipment, they began to analyze the students' conditions. They have been poisoned by the poisonous lizard and are now in a state of biological poisoning. Astra's voice sounded in Yuan's mind. We must immediately prepare the corresponding anti-venom serum, otherwise they can only hold out for 48 hours at most. Yuanzi frowned, searching for a solution in his mind. The poisonous forest lizard is a source beast that is rumored to be extinct. Although it is only at the body tempering level, its toxins are difficult for even most source beasts below the extraordinary level to resist. You're right, Rick said, especially in this foggy jungle, the poisonous fog is hard to detect. There are probably more than 20 people in a coma due to poisoning right now. Basically, all the survivors have been placed in this cave by us. The range of the poisonous fog is not large. Once you exceed a certain range, you will be gone. Ji Shifeng also responded. Yuan's exchanged the situation with the two and walked out of the cliff silently. They both inhaled a small amount of toxins, but fortunately the dose was very low and was temporarily suppressed. However, they all knew that the source power attached to this toxin could invade their nerves and manipulate their behavior at close range. Only Yuan still had the strength to fight. Yuanzi thought that this was part of the assessment. He could help his friends, but he didn't want to pay attention to these people with whom he had little interaction. But Rick and Ji Shifeng's words changed Yuan's. This is a matter of life and death, not the time to dither. These people are all our comrades. I know you are capable and decisive, and now is the time for you to step up. The lives of these students, including ours, are all in your hands. And I heard from my family that if they owe you a favor with their lives, they will have to repay it if they grow up, otherwise it will affect their breakthrough. Ji Shifeng also added. Now that things have come to this, I must not let my friend down. I must find a solution as soon as possible, otherwise the consequences will be disastrous. However, what troubled Yuanzi was that this toxin had the property of penetrating through the fog without any protection, and the poisonous lizard would explode before dying, releasing more toxins, which made it impossible for them to fight in close combat. At this moment, he only had a Type 1 phase gun that Rick had given him, which was improved according to his own drawings. As long as the source power was input, this gun could exert amazing power. It relied on the phase conversion of the source power to generate a high-frequency oscillating energy beam in a short period of time, and accurately strike the target with resonance destructive power. As Yuan's walked forward, he asked Astra in his mind, has the structure of the toxin been completely analyzed? Can the gene chip produce the corresponding antibody? Astra replied, give me some time. I am doing my best to analyze the structure of this toxin. It is very complex. I am still simulating its quaternary structure and three-dimensional conformation, while also considering its combined effect with the source force. After hearing Astra's answer, Yuan's fell into deep thought. He knew that time was running out and he had to find a solution as soon as possible. After repeatedly deducing and weighing the options in his mind, the outline of a plan gradually emerged in his mind. He no longer hesitated and immediately sped up to rush to the coordinate point. Yuan's arrived at the edge of the poisonous fog, which was about 10 kilometers away from the coordinates marked by Rick. He turned on the thermal imaging function, and the scene in front of him immediately became clear. The source of energy here was unusually abundant, and the temperature of the mist mixed with toxins was much higher than the ordinary mist nearby, which also cleverly concealed the position of the forest lizard. He then activated the frequency scanning function, and the oscillating phase gun began to perform precise frequency analysis on the poisonous fog. By analyzing the reflected wave data, Yuanzi accurately identified the inherent frequency of the water droplets and toxic particles in the poisonous fog. With these data, he quickly adjusted the output parameters of the oscillating phase gun to ensure that each wave could perfectly resonate with the poisonous fog particles. When the resonance effect was triggered, the particles vibrated sharply and heated up instantly, causing the fog to dissipate quickly. Phase adjusted, ready to dispel. As the shot was fired, the fog in front seemed to be cleared away instantly by an invisible force, and the toxins condensed into solid particles and fell to the ground. Yuanzi continued to move forward without hesitation, and soon found the lizard beasts crawling slowly on the ground. He quickly poured in his energy, switched the shock phase gun to continuous shooting mode, and quickly eliminated these threats. Astra, why is this weapon so useful? The weapon you recommended to me before is worthless compared to this one. Yuanzi couldn't help but ask. He was a little puzzled by Astra's choice. Astra snorted and explained, what do you know? Although these source beasts that cannot get close to each other can make other source beasts suffer, their defense is generally very poor. Facing humans using various weapons and equipment, they have no advantage at all. They are also the first group of source beasts to be exterminated by humans. And you've also seen that the energy bullets are not even enough to tickle the crocodiles. Instead, they will be alerted when they are attacked. I don't know why your friend was poisoned, so he is so panicked. Yuanzi did not ask any more questions. He approached the remains of the exploded source beasts and used the phase gun to disperse the surrounding poisonous fog. Then, he carefully took out several bottles of purple venom from the venom glands. You don't need to take so much. I have my own magic trick. By the way, are you okay? Okay, but wait a minute. Astra's voice sounded in Yuanzi's mind. Enter the flow, and check the surrounding environment. I feel something is different here. The source power here seems to be seeping up from underground, and it is very strong. Yuanzi followed his instructions and entered the reconnaissance mode, turning on the flow. He carefully observed the ground, and could vaguely see the source power surging wildly, as if something was about to come out from the ground. At the same time, Astra also turned on the light and shadow weaving device and drew a magnificent underground building on Yuanzi's mask. This building exudes an ancient and mysterious atmosphere, which makes people want to explore it. Let's explore again next time. Let's make antitoxin serum to save people first. Yuan suppressed his curiosity and decided to focus on rescuing the wounded first. Okay, I have transferred all the relevant data to the gene chip. Astra responded, next, you just need to inject a large dose of venom into your body. The gene chip will reorganize your immune system and prompt your body to produce targeted anti-venom serum. And then, I can analyze the composition of the anti-venom serum and instruct you on how to use the source force to solve this problem. Isn't the poison mist I just inhaled enough? I need a large dose. Why do I have to suffer this? Listen to me, this will do you good. Yuanzi found a relatively secluded spot and injected a large dose of venom into his body. As the venom was injected bit by bit, the purple color was dyeing his whole body along the blood vessels. His eyes gradually turned purple, and a trace of black blood seeped out from the corners of his mouth. This toxin, which even the top level might not be able to resist, was raging wildly in Yuanzi's body, as if it was going to corrode every inch of his skin and every nerve. However, at this critical moment, the new function of the gene chip was activated. New mode, antivirus mode activated. Chapter 58 The Essence of Survival I. After the new mode is activated, the gene chip is not satisfied with only connecting to the nervous system, but also begins to establish connections with the immune system. The golden lines slowly spread along the lymphatic vessels throughout the body, gradually spreading throughout the body, forming two sets of intricate and intertwined circuits with the previous neural network. This time was different from the pain in the connecting nerves when Yuanzi transplanted the chip. This time it was more of a torment of sitting on pins and needles. Not only that, Yuanzi clearly felt that his body seemed to have turned into a battlefield filled with smoke, with fierce battles taking place everywhere. The toxins were divided into three groups: neurotoxins, blood toxins and cytotoxins. They were wreaking havoc in his body, trying to invade every corner of his body and constantly destroying various tissues. After the gene chip reconnected the immune system, it reactivated the immune system. Although the process of connecting the immune system took a little time, under the manipulation of the gene chip, the reaction became more rapid. Gene chips can also mobilize the source of activation to initiate adaptive immunity faster. This immunity involves the activation of B cells and T cells, which are capable of producing highly specific antibodies and immune responses against specific toxins, and this process is shortened from days or even weeks to a few hours. This is also a brand new combat experience. Jens has further developed the ability of flow, which allows him to look inside his own body and take in the microscopic combat scene. In his inner world, ordinary cells become fortresses, while toxins sneak in like ghosts and go straight to the life code in the cell nucleus. The fortress sacrificed its own life to trap the toxin inside, while the white blood cells charged forward under the precise command of the gene chip, fighting a life and death battle with the toxin. Every battle between cells is a brilliant display of life force, doing their best to resist the invasion of toxins. On the battlefield, the smoke filled the air, life and death intertwined. Yuan's could clearly feel every tremor and every impact inside his body. It was a war between cells and toxins, a contest between life and death. His body seemed to have turned into a purgatory, with every cell experiencing torment and suffering. As time goes by, the battle intensifies and more immune cells are deployed. Macrophages rush in upon hearing the news. Like giant vacuum cleaners, they open their mouths wide and greedily devour the toxins and cell fragments that have been corroded by the toxins. T cells are elite special forces that accurately identify cells infected by toxins and release deadly killing factors to destroy these cells one by one. Ultimately, the gene chip manipulated B cells to differentiate into plasma cells in large numbers, releasing a large amount of antibodies that completely neutralized and killed all toxins in the body. These antibodies are the important components of serum. Yuanzi closed his eyes and began to try to activate his source power. He felt a warm force gushing out from his heart and flowing through his blood vessels to his entire body. He tried to use this force to wrap the antibodies and separate them from the blood. This was not easy, and he needed very fine control. If he applied too much force, he might destroy the anti-venom serum. If he applied too little force, he would not be able to separate it from the blood. With the help of Flo and Astra, he tried again, and finally succeeded in isolating the first drop of anti-venom serum. He opened his eyes and looked at the drop of crystal clear liquid in the palm of his hand. It was like a drop of dew in the morning light, crystal clear and full of vitality. Under the refraction of light, it emitted a faint blue light, like a gem in the deep sea, quiet and mysterious. This drop of light blue liquid rolled gently in his palm, like a blue pearl, jumping with a smart melody in the interweaving of light and shadow. The surface tension of the liquid gave it a perfect arc shape, like a piece of art carefully carved by nature. Through the thin film of water, Yuan seemed to be able to see the powerful force contained in it, which was the power of life. Yuan's lifted it up with his mental power, carefully placed it in the test tube, and tried to activate the source power to transform it into an antibody. Yuanzi closed his eyes and immersed himself in that wonderful feeling again. He could feel the source power flowing out from his heart like a warm stream, slowly flowing through his blood. This power was connected to his blood, as if it was a part of his life, and he could control it at will. He tried to direct this source power to the drop of anti-venom serum in his hand. Under his will, the source power began to slowly wrap around the crystal drop, as if a thin layer of light film gently covered it. He could feel the subtle interaction between the source power and the anti-venom serum. They intertwined and merged with each other. As time went on, the source power began to mimic the form of the anti-venom serum. It gradually became more liquid, like tiny beads, jumping and spinning in his palm. These beads emitted a faint blue light, which complemented the light of the anti-venom serum. Yuanzi picked up the blue vial and looked at the blue light flashing inside. When he tilted the vial, the liquid source power flowed out as smoothly as silk, gleaming with the luster of the heart of the ocean. Isn't this much better than that energy potion? Yuan's thought of the blue bottle again, and he finally understood why his master had never allowed him to use the so-called source power potion. In comparison, the previous one was simply a shoddy product. Yuan stood up and prepared to go to the cave, but he felt weak. He had eaten the source power pills he asked Rick for before making them. As a result, his source power was extremely overdrawn and he felt a little dizzy. He held onto the protruding rock beside him and managed to stand up. The precise control of the source force exhausted him physically and mentally, but he still gritted his teeth and returned to the cave. Rick, Ji Shifeng, this is the source power version of the anti-venom serum. Hurry up and distribute it and inject it to everyone. I have tried it. Rick and Ji Shifeng took a bottle of antitoxin serum respectively and looked at him. Are you okay? How did you make? Yuan's was already extremely tired. His eyes went dark and he fell down weakly. The two hurriedly caught Yuanzi's fallen body, and after confirming that he was fine, they carefully placed him aside. Then, they immediately began the intensive and orderly work of injecting the antitoxin serum. Deep in the dream, Yuanzi's consciousness floated in the haze, and he seemed to be in the microscopic world of his body again. He saw trillions of cells working tirelessly, working closely together to resist the invasion of harmful substances from the outside world. This scene made him deeply realize that the war of life is not just a contest with the source beasts, but a long war that has been going on since birth and against various unfavorable factors. In this war, unity and assistance between cells become the most important weapons. Yuan smiled in his sleep, and his dream changed. He saw himself standing on a vast interstellar port, facing the vast sea of stars. Behind him were countless like-minded figures, some of whom were driving spaceships to explore the unknown space, some were holding weapons to firmly resist foreign invasions, and some were immersed in research to crack the mysteries of the universe. Let's move forward fearlessly towards the interstellar road together. Chapter 59 The Essence of Survival 2. Yuanzi slowly opened his eyes, and the world around him changed from the boundless sea of stars back to the familiar cave. His body was enveloped by the warm sunlight that penetrated into the cave, and the breeze with a hint of the morning grass and trees blew across his face. He sat up, and the fatigue had long been swept away, and the source power in his body was at its newest peak. You're awake. Ji Shifeng's voice reached Yuan's ears. Yuan's turned around and saw the two people behind him. There was a look of relief on their faces. They breathed a sigh of relief, and a huge stone in their hearts finally fell. I feel great, and my energy is more abundant than before. You recovered so quickly. I saw you were exhausted at that time. Ji Shifeng approached him curiously and carefully felt the surge of his source power. It is indeed true. Before leaving, those people thanked you. Now that you are ready, let's go too. According to the requirements, this assessment must also obtain a small red flag, and the assessment score must be calculated by recording the source beasts killed. The crocodile tyrant, killed by Yuanzi before, was also counted, so the score was terribly high. But Rick and Ji Shifeng knew the truth, not everyone had this luck and ability. For other people, this level of source beast is not a blessing of great wealth, but a desperate situation with no chance of survival. The three of them kicked the ground hard, and the rocks under their feet broke into pieces. They shuttled through the wild land, constantly harvesting source beasts along the way, and their points continued to rise. Even when they had a break, they never let down their guard and were always ready for battle. They approached the original location of the forest lizard little by little. Yuan's was about to speak of his discovery, but was stopped by Astra. Yuan's also used heart flow to see that the underground building and the huge source of power disappeared underground without a trace. What are you staring at? You have killed all these lizards. Rick thought Yuan's was looking at the corpses of lizards on the ground, so he pulled him back to his senses. They gradually went deeper, trying to find those small red flags. These small red flags were planted by the instructors in the habitats of some powerful source beasts and were very difficult to obtain. So they had to go to some dangerous places within the area, which were also areas simulated by the White Simulation Tower. They quickly located this place. The fog here was more humid and thicker, making it difficult for the three of them to breathe. What is this? Ji Shifeng seemed to have stepped on something, and he felt a strange touch under his feet. Then there was a crackling sound, and an unbearable stench penetrated the mask, and the three of them almost stopped breathing due to the pungent smell. It's a corpse. Yuan's and Rick made their judgment immediately after smelling the smell. Ji Shifeng couldn't stand the stench, so he took off his mask, leaned against a big tree nearby, and started vomiting. The other two cautious people came closer and saw a highly corroded corpse vaguely visible in the mist. Its skin had turned dark black and was tightly attached to the bones. There were still a few pieces of tattered clothes on its body. The face of the corpse was unrecognizable, and only some hideous outlines remained. Judging from the degree of decay of the corpse, it must have been dead for a long time. However, in this area, the corpse was not eaten by any living creature, which was even more unusual. It looks like the body of a test taker from a few years ago. Rick covered his nose and said, but why did it become like this? Although the environment here is harsh, the abundant source power should have a strong anti-corrosion effect. It shouldn't be corrupted to this state, right? Yuanzi did not answer. He squatted down, stretched out his hand covered with source power and gently pressed on the corpse. To his surprise, this seemingly highly decomposed corpse still had a faint source power fluctuation. This fluctuation was very weak and almost negligible, but it was real. It stands to reason that dead creatures do not have source power, and the source power they had in life will be released into the environment after death. This corpse is a bit strange. Yuanzi stood up and said to the two, we'd better be careful. There may be some danger here that we don't know about. Yuanzi gave the task of analyzing the two contradictions to Astra. After Ji Shifeng gradually got used to the taste, the three of them continued to move deeper. They didn't notice that the highly corroded corpse moved its fingers slightly, as if it was still struggling in its death throes. As they continued walking, the three became more confused. Every time they walked a certain distance, they would find some rotten corpses. Some looked like they had just died, with some luster on their skin and some elasticity when stepped on. Some had been dead for a while, with gray-green skin and a dragging feeling when stepped on. Some were even more corrupt than the first one, with some insect-like source beasts drilling in and out of the holes in their bodies. Yuanzi, be careful. This is a mutated mist floater. It is almost invisible in this kind of fog. Here is its information. The mist-floating spirits are social creatures, and their individual strength is weak. But they cling to each other in the mist, forming a huge, almost invisible group of creatures. This group has the strength comparable to that of high-level body-tempered source beasts. These creatures float and wriggle freely in the mist, just like jellyfish in the ocean. Yuan's was slightly stunned. He never thought that one day Astra would call him by his name. Check on Ji Shifeng quickly, he might have been poisoned. Yuan's turned his head to look at Ji Shifeng, who seemed to be fine. Ji Shifeng also felt Yuan's gaze and made an, okay, gesture. Look at you making such a fuss. Just in case, Yuan's used, flow, to look at Ji Shifeng. Its new ability can even see at the cellular level. This sight completely stunned Yuanzi. A small amount of foreign substance similar to neurotransmitter was transmitting in his body. This is a biological enzyme in the body of this mutated mist-floating spirit. It can combine with the mist in the surrounding environment to form a complex toxin molecule. The structure of this toxin molecule is similar to the neurotransmitter in the body, so it can easily invade the body and interfere with the normal functioning of its nervous system. Astra helped Yuanzi explain. Fortunately, the amount he inhaled is limited, not very high, but I suggest you use the anti-toxin mode to make the antidote before moving forward. Yuan's took action quickly. He shared all the information with the two of them. Ji Shifeng, in particular, turned pale and cried out for Yuan's to make an antidote quickly, otherwise his ideal of eating the source beast would be wasted. Yuan's quickly gave the antidote to the source of power to the two of them. According to Astra, the effect would last for at least a month, so Ji Shifeng felt relieved. Just as they were taking the antidote, Yuan's accidentally caught a glimpse of green lights in the darkness. He turned his head subconsciously and saw nothing. Chapter 60 The Essence of Survival Part. The three of them maintained their formation and moved further forward, finally arriving at the location of the small red flag. This isn't dangerous at all. I haven't even seen a decent source beast. Ji Shifeng muttered as he picked up the small red flag hanging at the foot of the hillside. Ji Shifeng felt that the color of this small red flag was a little dark, and it had broken edges. It looked like it had been waiting here for a long time. Just as Ji Shifeng stood up, a pair of green eyes approached quietly, and then a rotten corpse stretched out its hands and fiercely pinched his neck. Careful! Ji Shifeng was stunned as a pool of foul-smelling liquid splashed on his body, causing him to shiver and almost drop the red flag in his hand. Fortunately, Rick reacted quickly and took out his phase gun and shot the corpse in the head. At the same time, Yuan's kicked the corpse away with lightning speed. They felt like they were in a sea of dead silence, with only the creaking sounds of people walking. Looking around, they found that they were surrounded by dense green eyes. The three of them stood back to back, forming a tight defensive circle, watching the surroundings vigilantly. The corpses shrouded in the smell of decay staggered towards them as if summoned. Why are these guys never going to stop? Ji Shifeng tightly grasped the sledgehammer in his hand, and each swing seemed to tear the air apart, bringing with it a whistling sound. The sledgehammer smashed hard on the approaching corpse, making a dull thumping sound, followed by the sound of bones breaking and flesh collapsing, and then it turned into fragments and fell to the ground. Rick held the phase gun tightly with both hands, and he kept pulling the trigger, shooting out beams of energy, knocking down the decayed corpses one by one. The muzzle flashed in the mist with every shot Rick fired. Yuanzi's figure quickly shuttled across the battlefield, like a ghost. His shadow blade danced in his hand, cutting the air, and each time it passed, it crushed a corpse. When the blade came into contact with the flesh, it made a harsh cutting sound, accompanied by rancid liquid and minced meat. Fortunately, they are not alive at all. After being severely damaged, they completely lose the fluctuations of their source power and no longer pose a threat. However, just when the three thought that all the bodies had fallen, an even more ominous aura suddenly came from the fog, and the scene before them completely shattered their expectations. The corpse of a wolf-shaped source beast suddenly rushed out from the shadows. Although it was dead, it seemed to be driven by some evil force. Its limbs were swinging stiffly, and it rushed towards the three people at an alarming speed. This source beast was obviously an extraordinary being when it was alive. Even after death, its body still exudes a terrifying aura of oppression. Rick's eyes narrowed, and the phase gun in his hand fired out a beam of light first, trying to penetrate the rotten skin. The silver-white skin of the source beast's corpse still retained its unique defensive power. The beam of light only splashed some sparks on it, but did not cause any damage. It opened its rotten giant mouth, as if calling for its companions, and let out a soul-stirring roar. Yuan's and Ji Shifeng reacted quickly. While its attention was distracted by the bullet, Yuan swung his knife at the forelimbs of the source beast's corpse, while the other jumped from the side and tried to jump onto its back to suppress his attack. But the power of the corpse of the source beast was far beyond their imagination. It waved its forelimbs and shook Yuanzi away. Although Ji Shifeng successfully jumped onto its back, he was pulled away by Yuanzi the moment he flew out. Astra, why are you taking over my body? If I hadn't taken over your body temporarily, Ji Shifeng would have died. Yuan's was a little confused. This is the Wolf King of the Netherworld self-locking war wolf, a supernatural beast with extraordinary talents. It seems that this is its territory. Its ability is very tricky. Fortunately, it is only a corpse now, and it was already very old before it died. Its current strength is at most 1/10 of its peak period. You mean he is a source beast that can manipulate source power to form a quantum field? His ability should be related to the self-locking effect. Yes, and it was even stronger than that crocodile when it was alive. The nether self-lock Wolf King can release the source force to form a quantum field surrounding its body. In this field, all matter will be magnetized. Its claw attack can briefly apply a special angle of electromagnetic force, causing the attacked target to be locked in place. At the same time, its self-locking nether shield will be strengthened in the field. When the enemy tries to break through the shield, the self-locking effect will be triggered, applying a new force to lock the enemy firmly to the surface of the shield. The enemy can either abandon the weapon and escape, or continue to suffer the burning damage of the nether. So think about it, what would happen if Ji Shifeng really sat on it? And among the three of you, only you can create an electromagnetic field to interfere with the performance of his domain, and only you can deal with him head-on. Don't forget that it is the Wolf King, and its dead brothers must still be nearby. Sure enough, several smaller wolves appeared nearby and rushed towards Ji Shifeng and Rick. Although the netherworld self-locking War Wolf King was a corpse, its eyes still revealed deep hostility towards Yuanzi. Its remaining intelligence was extremely confused about its failure to control Yuanzi, so it focused all its attention on this human who threatened it. The Wolf King's body swung its limbs stiffly, and in a strange posture, it launched a fierce attack on Yuan's again. Every time it swung its claws, it was accompanied by a surge of source power, as if it was going to tear apart everything around it. Yuan's was agile and kept dodging the Wolf King's attacks. Although Yuan's could reduce or even offset its control, he was completely unable to break through its defense because of the self-locking effect. Use the spiritual resonance of the Shadow Twin Blades. The spiritual level of the corpse is extremely weak. Astra's voice sounded in Yuan's mind, reminding him to change his fighting style. After all, they still had the mist-floating spirit to deal with, and they couldn't delay here for too long. How could I have forgotten this trick? Yuanzi first took a few steps and rushed to the front of the Wolf King. The Wolf King also subconsciously used his sharp claws to block. At the moment before the light blade touched the Wolf King, Yuanzi attached the fear, stolen from the heart flow, to the source force to form the light blade, and the light blade instantly turned black. The moment it touched the Wolf King's body, the dark power on the shadow double blade seemed to have found an outlet to vent, and it madly eroded the Wolf King's body. The Wolf King let out a shrill roar, and its body began to tremble violently, as if it was enduring unspeakable pain. Yuan's did not continue to attack, but quietly observed the Wolf King. After it finished struggling, its energy was exhausted, and it staggered, as if it would fall down at any time. However, it still walked towards Yuan's firmly, as if seeking the final answer. He became more alert and stared at the Wolf King. Suddenly, the Wolf King knelt on the ground with its two front legs, raised its head and looked deeply at Yuan's. At that moment, its eyes became unusually clear, as if expressing gratitude to Yuan's, thanking him for freeing it from endless pain. Puff! The Wolf King finally fell. Puff puff. The voices rang out one after another, and the Nether Wolf brothers who were fighting with Ji Shifeng and Rick fell down one after another. They all knelt down towards Yuan's at the same time, closed their eyes, and bid farewell to this world. Even though these source beasts have turned into corpses, they still retain their persistence and dignity. Although they cannot speak, they express their awe of life and their desire for liberation in their own way. Astra, didn't you say they were just corpses with weak mental powers? I don't know either. Astra's voice trembled a little. She already had some understanding of human emotions and seemed to be deeply moved by this scene. Maybe these low-level source beasts also have emotions and dignity that we cannot understand. Yuanzi's heart was filled with mixed emotions. He remembered what his master had said a long time ago. Is it true that humans claim to be the most intelligent creatures in the world? Thank you for watching. Continue exploring the fascinating world of Chinese novels with us. Hit that subscribe button on Chinese Novel Audiobook to stay updated with our latest stories, and never miss out on a great listen.